Don't forget to like and subscribe to follow good stories. Welcome to the Revan Ping Review channel. Today, I will review for you a story painted with the vibrant hues of romantic Italy. The world before the earth and sky were created was the ocean, and where the goddess of the ocean dwells, there is in his land blessed by her hands, known as Santenari, the virtue held most high. Here is beauty above all, or la bella figura, and as beauty is everything. Every night, extravagance and pleasure are chased like stars in the sky. But even in a place like this, there exists a cesspool where all manner of appalling things end up. In the slum of Kimurah, a group of people surrounds a boy. You little rat. Don't even think about running away. We know everything, Adele. You aren't truly mute, are you? One of the men yanks at his collar, exposing a part of his well-built chest. Suddenly, a girl's voice cries out, "Don't touch me." The men laugh lecherously. Is it true? This brat is actually a girl? Upon closer inspection, despite her face looking repulsive, her body is clearly feminine. She immediately brandishes a sharp object to defend herself. If you come any closer, then what? The older man lunges at her, growling, "I took pity on a fatherless, motherless wretch like you and sheltered you, but you don't even know how to show gratitude." He yanks the object from her hand and smashes it to pieces on the ground. "I pitied you for having to shine shoes for a living, and cared for you, yet you show me this attitude?" He strikes her face with a painful blow. "I'll give you a week. If you don't pay the protection fee by then, I'll have a way to deal with a brat like you." A few days later, at San Celina Plaza, the girl continued her shoe-shining job as usual. With only 2 days left until the payment deadline, she still had no idea where to find the money to pay them off. "If I truly get dragged into the red light district, I'd rather die," she thought. Coincidentally, the man reading the newspaper nearby voiced her innermost thoughts out loud. Of course, he merely uttered the words without meaning, but she couldn't help but notice him. Could it be? She wondered. Is this Cesare Buonaparte, the most renowned among the high nobility of Santra, and the subject of countless romantic rumors? Indeed, Cesare Buonaparte had finally found his destiny in Lady Lucrezia della Valle, the youngest daughter of Lord della Valle. According to an arranged marriage between the two families in the past, she had chosen Cesare, the heir to the Buonaparte family. This story had garnered much public attention, with the nobility congratulating the blossoming of Lucia's unrequited love. As she read this, the newspaper was crushed by a strong hand. Written beautifully, "Destiny, my foot." "I know what kind of woman she really is," the man muttered. The girl now confirmed that this man was indeed Cesare Buonaparte. She was astounded to encounter such an influential figure in San Celina Plaza. Suddenly, a thought flashed in her mind. What should I do? Should I tell him about my situation and ask for help? Maybe he'll pity me and give me some gold coins. The man leisurely took a drag on his cigar and nonchalantly spoke. "It's time to execute that plan," his companion exclaimed. "You mean that crazy plan? Are you serious?" Cesare replied, "Do you have a better idea? We need to find a good girl and sell her to the Della Valle family." Hearing this, the girl remained silent for a long moment, her heart beating faster than ever. Perhaps this was the last opportunity God had granted her, a chance to earn much more than just a few gold coins. Here, seizing the moment, she boldly spoke up. "Please, sell me. I will become the most valuable lady in all of Santenari." The man was astonished, and his companion was equally surprised that Cesare would entertain such a crazy plan. Cesare, in a mocking tone, questioned, "Miss, what are you? Your eyes must have gotten to list of shoes to tell people apart." "I'm not some brothel keeper, Miss Shoeshine." The girl clutched her rag tightly and responded with determination. "There's nothing wrong with my eyes, Master Bonaparte. My name is Adele. No, Adele Vivi. I can be anyone my master wants me to be. What I mean is, I will do better than anyone else." Cesare was intrigued. "You know what I want and are confident in your abilities, huh?" Adele responded, "You need a girl to impersonate a member of the Buonaparte family, don't you? I will marry into the Della Valle family instead." Cesare was taken aback. "Did you heard that from someone?" Adele replied, "No, I merely speculated based on what was written in the papers. In the pledge made between the two families, only their surnames are specified, not particular individuals. So if you buy a girl and deceive them into believing she is the hidden daughter of the Buonaparte family, you can escape this arranged marriage." "And why a girl?" "Because the Della Valle family has an unmarried son," his companion praised. Figuring that out just by reading the newspaper? You're impressive. Cesare shot his friend a sharp look and reminded him, stop it. This plan is a waste of time. The Della Vale family is highly educated and has been for generations. We can't present them with a girl who only knows how to read and write, Adele countered. What if I can do more than just read and write? Did you just speak Denonese? Cesare asked, intrigued. Yes, I also speak Algesian, she replied. Where did you learn a foreign language? He inquired. I read books at the public library and picked up phrases from conversations with foreigners, Adele explained. The man, both amused and skeptical, rubbed his temples. Learning by eavesdropping? I feel like the sea goddess is playing tricks on me. Even if you know a lot, we can't sell you with that face. Cesare tapped the wrinkled skin on her cheek with the tip of his shoe. Sorry, but you're out. The two men stood up and started to leave, leaving Adele sitting there, despondent. Suddenly, she called out, wait. Adele removed her hat and tore away her disguise. The two men were stunned to see a girl with long hair and smooth skin emerge. She asked, what about now? Do I still not qualify? Standing by the large fountain, the two men couldn't take their eyes off Adele, astonished by her transformation. Her hair and eye color matched perfectly. Cesare crossed his arms, scrutinizing her. Are you perhaps a noble? No, sir, she replied. And your parents? He pressed. Adele, annoyed, retorted. How could you ask a lifelong orphan about her parents? Cesare grew suspicious. Now I'm curious. You're not foolish enough to not know you could die if discovered. So why agree to this plan? Adele hesitated. Because I'm hungry. Seeing her frail appearance, Cesare pondered for a moment. All right then. He reached into his pocket as he prepared to leave. I am Cesare. You will escort her. Adele immediately recognized the quote and responded, at the place we both desire. We will meet again, won't we? Cesare smirked, surprised. She knew the line from Durante's play. It seems I've found a girl who is both beautiful and useful, he commanded. Come to Buonaparte tomorrow morning. Returning to her slum, Adele still couldn't believe that Cesare Buonaparte had accepted her proposal. Though she wasn't afraid of being sold, Adele had one lingering regret: her only friend, Clarissa. They hadn't had the chance to speak about this directly, but Adele had left a letter, hoping Clarice would read it. Suddenly, there was a loud knocking at the door. Who could be coming here at this hour? As she listened more closely, Adele's eyes widened. Could it be? When the door was flung open, the old man from the other day barged in, threatening her. I knew it, he roared angrily. If I hadn't come to check, you would have run away and skipped out on the protection money, wouldn't you? He grabbed Adele's arm and shouted, come here, I'm going to sell you off too. Instinctively, Adele yanked her arm free and screamed, let go of me. She dashed toward the window, prompting the old man to bellow like a wild beast. Bitch, get back here. Where do you think you're going? The old man lunged at her, but Adele, panicked, quickly slipped through the window. I just have one last question. Cesare's voice echoed in her mind. You clearly know you could die if discovered. So why did you agree to my plan? Trembling, Adele whispered to herself, because I had nothing left to lose. Adele fell from the upper floor, landing breathlessly on the damp ground. It didn't matter if she truly died or not. If she could escape from this place, she would do so even at the cost of her life. At the front yard of the Buonaparte mansion, a butler named Ernesto awaited her with respect. He invited her inside the grand and magnificent estate. In Cesare's study, Adele had been waiting for a while when the young man finally spoke, his tone mocking. You look awful. Why has my beloved little sister get so drenched on her way home? Go ahead, tell your big brother. Adele hesitated before starting. An old man named Nino runs a shoeshine shop in Kimurah. I didn't pay his protection fee, so he kicked me out. Eventually, he would have. Cesare interrupted. That old man, he's dead. Adele felt a shiver run down her spine. Cesare looked out the window and remarked, it's pouring down tonight, isn't it? Rain like this washes away many things. I heard a shack in Kimurah collapse suddenly, resulting in a death. These things happen. He turned his gaze to the girl before him and asked, so, what else is holding you back? Startled, Adele quickly replied, nothing at all. Cesare sighed, all right, let's put that aside for now. A sudden wave of anxiety surged within Adele, sensing that he might know about her friend Clarissa. Cesare noticed her clenching and trembling hands and smirked. Don't worry too much. I'm only ensuring that this plan goes smoothly. Returning to the main topic, Cesare continued, your goal, Adele, is to seduce the son of the Della Vale family and marry him. To do that, you will have to learn how to speak, walk, and conduct yourself like a perfect Buonaparty lady, fooling the entire elite society of Fornity. You have 3 months to prepare. If you fail to become the lady I want, the plan will be called off. As Adele watched the matchstick gradually being consumed by the flame, many thoughts surged within her. Cancelled? If the plan fails, will I be discarded too? Silently, she replied, I understand. Cesare continued, aren't you going to ask why it's 3 months? Adele responded, isn't that when your birthday is? Cesare, surprised, replied, exactly. As I thought, you're smart enough to deduce my plan just from those few lines in the newspaper. I have a feeling you know more about this family than I do. He lifted her chin, scrutinizing her. I think there's another reason. Are you interested in me? He continued in a mocking tone, for a country girl with nothing but a pretty face, an older brother like me must seem like a savior. I need to remind you not to sneak into my bedroom in the middle of the night like this. Adele remained silent for a moment before replying, thank you for the advice, but I'm not interested in that. She turned away, thinking to herself, he's handsome, but just as crazy. Cesare laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, that expression of yours is perfect. I'm only warning you because someone tried it before. Adele responded, I will remember that, sir. Cesare corrected her, not sir. You should call me brother from now on. Hesitantly, Adele complied, yes, brother. Cesare continued, all right, little sister, from now on, you will be Adelaide Buonaparty, 5 years younger than me. You lived in Capallo, a place across the sea, and you were a commoner, but for some reason, you came here alone. Adele realized he was concocting a far-fetched story about her identity. She inquired, does the master of this place know about your plan? Cesare's grandmother, Eva Buonaparty, was the one who held power over the estate. Without her approval, the plan could never be executed. Cesare hesitated before replying, no, it seems Eva is more interested in seeing her granddaughter, so she welcomed Lady Lucrezia with open arms. Seeing Adele deep in thought, Cesare swung his leg casually and said, there's something more important to ask about. Adele was puzzled. What is it? Cesare replied, about my parents. If you want to impersonate my sister, you need to know about them too. Why haven't you asked about that, little sister? Adele found herself unable to speak because everyone in the country knew the story of Cesare's parents. They had loved each other so deeply that they abandoned their families and left, even leaving behind their young son. Hesitantly, she responded, I just heard that they left when you were 7 years old. Cesare seemed amused. Then I don't need to explain that anymore. Just say they were passionately in love and had you. That's enough for today. I've already told a maid to wait outside the door, so follow her. Adelaide Buonaparty, I hope the next time we meet, I will see the image of a proper lady. I look forward to witnessing your transformation, Cesare said. Adele replied, I will try my best, brother. Outside the room, a maid named Aponi Colère was waiting to serve her. Adele was led to an incredibly spacious and luxurious room, fully equipped with all the necessities. Although the maid called the room quite simple, Adele couldn't help but be amazed by its opulence. Starting tomorrow, you will be taught about the etiquettes and manners. You must not catch a cold, Aponi said, as she led Adele to a large bath. I will help you wash your face, miss. Adele hesitated. No, I can bathe myself. The maid replied, a noble cannot bathe themselves. This is one of the rules that must be followed, so please understand. Faced with Ipon's firm request, which sounded like a command, Adele reluctantly agreed. When her clothes slipped off, the maid was horrified to see Adele's body covered with numerous bruises from beatings. Aponi exclaimed in shock, these bruises don't last long. I know from plenty of experience. They won't leave any lasting marks, Adele said, lowering her head like a scolded child. Are you going to report this to him? Adele was afraid that if this was revealed, Cesare might cancel the contract because of her scarred body. Aponi replied, the contract between you and Master Cesare will remain valid until you marry into the Della Vale family. Until then, as long as Master and Lord Della Vale do not find out, it's fine. Adele sighed in relief. Ipon reminded her to eat more and recover her body, because she had now become a Buonaparty lady. In his private room, Cesare was inquiring about his new sister. Epone did not hesitate to reveal the bruises on Adele's body, but she believed that with treatment, the wounds would heal, and Adele would gain weight and become a great beauty. Cesare turned his head and mused, "She's already a beauty. It's a pity she's my sister." Epone was flustered. "Master," Cesare reassured her, "I won't lay a finger on her, so don't worry." He flashed a wicked smile and said, "In any case, I'm going to have her killed as soon as the pledge is fulfilled." One night, Adele woke up in the middle of the night as usual. This was the time when the fishing boats returned to the harbor after a night out at sea. Some fishermen would wait for unsold fish to take home. She had hoped to wake up, as she did every day, to wander around the harbor, but she was surprised to find herself living in such luxury. Adele reassured herself that everything would be fine. Unable to fall back asleep, she picked up a book and read until dawn. Ipon entered the room to wake her, but was surprised to find Adele already awake. "What should I start with today?" Adele asked. Ipon replied, "You seem eager, but from today, you'll be very busy. First, we'll start with breakfast." A table laden with delicious dishes was set before Adele. Her cheeks flushed with delight at the sight of the food. Epone helped her to the table. Adele wasn't picky with food. She could even eat insects. This pleased the maid. Table manners are one of the essential skills a noble must have. It's fundamental, Ipon explained as she guided Adele on how to properly use utensils and maintain posture while eating. "You're doing very well," Ipon encouraged. "Yes. Go ahead and eat." Adele happily savored the steak, enjoying the flavors of capio beef with arugula, celery, linguine with mackerel and abalone, and turbot wrapped in potato with tomato sauce. All these dishes were exquisite. She felt like licking the plate clean, but then realized she might have eaten too much. Like a beggar, Ipon didn't laugh at her. "From now on, I think it would be better for you to eat 4 meals a day, my lady." Hearing this, Adele's cheeks flushed with happiness. "I like this," she thought. Next, the maid led Adele on a tour of the mansion. "This is the library. This is the meeting room. This is the gallery." She wasn't sure how many rooms she had been shown. While walking in the courtyard, Ipon advised her on the rules for meeting the master and some principles to follow while staying there. After listening for a while, Adele asked, "Is there anything else I need to be aware of?" Epone glanced at Adele and replied, "I suppose it would be best to tell you this now. There are a total 6 people, including myself, who know about the plan between you and Master Bonaparte. However, in a few days, that number will be 7. It is someone who is coming to teach you proper ladies' etiquette. Her name is Madame Flavia. She is very strict, but she is the best in her field, so please do your best to follow her lead." Adele nodded in agreement. "All right, I will. How should I greet Madame Flavia when I meet her for first meet?" Epone, reminded of the etiquette, responded, "You should learn the 40 style of greeting. Lift your skirt like this, stand straight, gently lower yourself to one knee, and bow your head." Adele mimicked the movements. "Like this?" Seeing her impeccable execution, Epone was astonished. "Excellent, my lady. You learn quickly." That evening, the maid escorted Adele to her bedroom and wished her a peaceful sleep, invoking the sea goddess's blessing. As the door softly closed, Adele's large room became silent. This silence was unfamiliar to her, as the noise of the slums in Kimurah was a daily occurrence. She had never known that such a tranquil place existed. Thus, Adele spent her second night in the Bonaparte mansion. Adele, 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 run away. She suddenly woke up from a strange dream. Right after, Epone burst through the door in a panic, shouting, "My lady, something serious has happened. You must get up immediately. Madame Flavia has unexpectedly arrived at the mansion." Epone was extremely anxious. "There's no time to waste. You must get dressed immediately." Adele, still groggy from sleep, asked, "But it's so early." Suddenly, the sound of high heels clicking approached from outside the door. Both of them were startled when an elderly woman appeared at the entrance. The Loredani family had served the Bonaparte family for generations, and among them, Madame Flavia Loredani had built a name for herself within the nobility. First, she was renowned for her beauty and elegance, and second, for her strict and peculiar methods of training young ladies. The door to Adele's room was flung open, followed by the angry shout of a woman. "How filthy! How dare you show yourself looking like that?" Flavia's stern voice echoed through the room, causing Adele to freeze in fear. Stammering, Adele began, "I apologize, I was in a hurry," and Flavia interrupted her. "Who told you to respond?" She continued to berate Adele loudly. Feeling helpless, Adele couldn't find words to respond to Flavia's unreasonable tirade. Just then, Cesare appeared at the doorway, his voice cutting through the tension. "If you knew how to behave, you wouldn't be scolding her like this. I didn't expect you to show up so early, Madame Flavia." Despite Flavia's continued stern tone as she stepped toward him, Cesare leaned in and kissed her lightly on both cheeks, greeting her. The gesture disarmed her completely. "We're in front of others, you know," she murmured, momentarily flustered. Cesare smoothly continued. "Did you sleep well last night, Madame Flavia?" After a moment's hesitation, she replied, "Of course." Cesare smiled. "Oh, that's good to hear. I'd love for you to join me for lunch, if you have the time." Flavia, still somewhat flustered, responded, "Well, I couldn't possibly turn down an invitation from you." Cesare, having achieved his goal, smiled with satisfaction. Every time he put on that face, Madame Flavia was at a loss for words. She clutched her head in frustration and lamented, "Your Grace, are you serious?" He flashed a charming smile and replied, "I know I'm handsome. That's why all the young ladies adore me." Noticing Adele looking his way, Cesare spoke to her. "Are you ready for your bath?" "I should have come later perhaps," Flavia exclaimed. "Your Grace, how can you speak so carelessly? What if the young lady misunderstands your words?" Seeing Adele remain silent, Cesare teased, "You seem indifferent to that. It hurts my pride." Flavia, now flustered, turned back to Adele. "How dare you act so nonchalantly when you are from such a lowly background?" Frowning, Flavia suddenly noticed something and quickly stepped towards Adele. She reached out and pulled down part of Adele's sleeve, revealing bruised skin. "What are these disgusting bruises?" she demanded. Adele quickly covered them and explained, "Nothing. They will heal soon and leave no marks." Flavia, unable to tolerate the sight, unleashed a tirade, calling her an unclean girl. Madame Flavia's harsh words brought back memories for Adele. The scoldings from the shoe store owner, the contempt of the nobleman who scorned her humble origins, and the debt collectors who had beaten her. These fragments of the past rushed back, making her clench the hem of her dress tightly. Adele, despite being deeply hurt by Madame Flavia's insults, calmly replied, "I apologize, madam. I know I have many faults, but I shall do my best." "Your best?" Flavia shouted. "Do you really think you can fool anyone into thinking you are anything more than a beggar with only some hard work? Do you honestly believe that you can fool the righteous eyes of those born into high society and surrounded by nobility all their lives?" Flavia continued, "You arrogant little fool. Don't forget, you've spent your whole life in the gutter." Adele stood firm. "I was born without parents and received no education. So, I don't know if it can be done, but my brother believes it's possible. That's why he brought me here." Flavia was momentarily struck silent by Adele's words. Adele continued, "So, madam, if you think this plan has flaws, perhaps you should discuss it with my brother." Cesare, witnessing his sister's composed and assertive response, felt satisfied. "Well said, Adele," he thought. Flavia's face turned dark after hearing this, knowing that speaking in such a manner to this proud elderly madam was a bit harsh. Adele, without hesitation, politely asked her to overlook it, which only made Flavia tremble with anger. Adding to her humiliation, Cesare's chuckling made her feel even more embarrassed. Flavia quickly turned away, stating that she had other matters to attend to, and excused herself. She pulled her hat over her face and walked away as fast as the wind. Cesare seemed very excited and smirked. "I never expected my sister to handle it like that." Adele didn't quite understand his true intentions but still thanked him. Just as she finished speaking, Cesare's tone turned mocking again. "But my sister isn't very agile, is she? Madame Flavia must have had a hard time with you." He gave a bright smile, but his words were full of insinuation. "She might have had an easier time if you were more obedient. The madam is kin." Adele's eyes widened. "You mean I should act more pitiful?" Cesare sneered. "Pitiful? You've always been pitiful because you've lived that way your whole life, even if it was just an act. What's wrong with that? You know which choice is wise, don't you?" Cesare deliberately leaned close to Adele's ear and whispered, "Isn't that right, Adele?" Looking at her own reflection in the eyes of the man before her, Adele thought to herself, This is definitely a test. She bowed deeply and expressed her regret, understanding that her brother was testing her reactions to scrutinize her. Therefore, she needed to strive to be the perfect sister in his eyes. Seeing her compliance, Cesare didn't respond, but turned his face away and left, not forgetting to leave a warning. They say she'll soon grow tired of you. Adele didn't quite understand his meaning. But the next day, she experienced Madame Flavia's boredom firsthand. Epone led her to a room where Madame Flavia was already waiting for her lesson. It seemed Madame Flavia was still resentful about the previous day. Flavia took a deep breath and lashed out. Adelaide Buonaparty. The Buonaparty name cannot be used so carelessly by someone like you. The fact that the great blue star adorns your chest is enough to anger the ocean. Godness, His Grace asked me to make you into a lady, but you appear to be in need of a defiant kind of education first. Then Flavia ordered, kneel down. Adele was taken aback. Pardon? She pointed a ruler straight at her face. Did you not hear what I said? Kneel down. Adele hesitated. Madame Flavia always displayed her malice openly. Perhaps she despised Adele for being just a shoeshine girl and not of noble blood. She wanted Adele to suffer. But despite all this, Adele complied because she believed that the kneeling of a shoeshine girl had no value. Flavia was also surprised by her obedience, but she continued to humiliate her by placing one foot on Adele's thigh. Listen carefully, you are merchandise, and all you need to do is be sold quietly to the Delavale family. If you want more than that, you will become shark food. She pointed straight at her and growled. I am reminding you of your place, understand? Adele replied, yes, madam. Seeing that she seemed to understand, Flavia allowed her to stand up and enter today's lesson. Today, Adele would learn how to walk like a noble, and she would have to wear these heels. Seeing them, Adele was very excited. The harsh words of the bitter teacher couldn't enter her ears anymore. She reached out to touch them, thinking, these are my new shoes. She eagerly put them on, but immediately realized something was wrong. The shoes were so tight that her toes seemed to scream in pain. Flavia's satisfaction was evident. Stand up quickly. You must continuously walk from here to there until I say stop. Adele's painful scream echoed as she fell face first to the floor. Gritting her teeth and trembling with anger, she said, I can't walk anymore. She threw the tight shoes to the floor without mercy. Flavia sneered. Such an attitude in a sacred lesson clearly shows you have no desire to study properly. You will never become a member of the Buonaparty family. Get out of here. Flavia's triumphant expression was clear. This was the boredom Cesare had mentioned. She tormented others to satisfy her ego. But despite her attempts to scream and drive away the filthy girl, Adele resiliently completed the lesson as meticulously as possible, which only infuriated Flavia further. Wearing those small shoes and training for hours without blinking, born of low status and disappointing actions, Flavia thought, I can't bear this anymore. Flavia turned to the maid and ordered, Epone, please step outside for a moment. Epone bowed respectfully and replied, I am very sorry, madam. The young master has instructed me to always stay by Miss Adele's side. Flavia responded, I will speak to Lord Cesare about this personally. This is not a punishment. I swear on the honor of the lord and family. Epone hesitated, but then allowed the two to have some private space. Flavia then cast a sideways glance at Adele and spoke, Shoeshine girl, let me be direct. Leave this mansion. Adele replied, that is not the intention of the person who brought me here. Flavia interrupted, I am telling you now. Compared to the Buonaparty family, the Delavale family is no match for them, but they are still far superior to a lazy and vulgar girl like you. Know your place and leave. If you do so, the lord and family will ensure your safety and you will also receive a substantial sum of money. Adele candidly replied, Madam, you want my brother to marry Lady Lucrezia Delavale, don't you? Flavia, struck to the core, widened her eyes. I thought you came here under my brother's wishes, but it seems that's not the case. With that, she prepared to leave, not forgetting to mention that she would discuss this with Cesare. Flavia immediately shouted, that is the wish of the lady of this place. The promise between the Delavale and Buonaparty families may be old-fashioned and outdated, but without it, would Lord Cesare agree to marry? Many women have surrounded him, but he still acts childishly without settling down. We cannot let this continue. Do you understand now? You are only fighting a losing battle. Adele bowed and thanked her, but straightforwardly stated that she could not follow her advice. This made Flavia furious, and she ran it again at Adele. Are you trying to extort more money? Adele leisurely replied, That is not the case. I just really enjoy the food here. Thinking of the croissants and strawberry cakes, my cheeks flush a bit with the urge to eat them immediately. Flavia frowned in confusion. What? Adele continued. Money and the future are very extravagant concepts to me. For those of us who struggle daily, a promise of the future is nothing but an illusion. It doesn't compare to a meal. Flavia felt disgusted by this thought, but Adele did not deny it, because she had lived in such poverty, worrying about each meal with just a few coins. Adele lifted her dress and respectfully replied, "No matter what offer you make, I will not leave the Buonaparty family." Leaving the study room, Flavia could not hide her anger. Even though Adele was walking in such tight shoes that caused her great pain, she still maintained her grace and composure, bidding farewell politely. It was absurd. But why on earth did she keep associating the image of Lord Cesare with that Shoeshine girl? Flavia gritted her teeth as she imagined the loathsome scene, but she was determined not to give up. She had to quickly find another way. It had been a week since Madame Flavia first came to teach Adele. The pronunciation, the ceremonies, speaking in public, how to become a lady of the upper class, how to gracefully decline a gentleman's invitation, and most importantly, how to walk elegantly. Epony was aware of how much Adele was enduring with those tiny shoes. The maid felt very sorry for her, but didn't know what to do. Epony tried to offer some comforting words. The truth is, Madame Flavia also knows that your posture is perfect, lady. You absorb lessons very quickly, like a sponge. Even though it has only been mentioned once, practice is necessary. But at this level, no one would think you belong to the lower class, lady. Adele didn't pay much attention and just mumbled an agreement before turning her face away. Suddenly, ahead of them, there was a group of ladies chatting. Adele asked, "Who are those women?" "I don't think I've seen them before," Epony replied. "They are the young ladies of the Orquanina delegation. A few days ago, the second prince of Orquanina had ascended to the throne. The person who supported him was none other than Duke Cesare. This was a significant support because the prince had no foundation, but he finally achieved his goal. In return for that favor, the new emperor had given Duke Cesare a gift. This was why the mansion was so lively. Adele could also guess that Cesare's assistance to the emperor would elevate his status here. The ladies had discovered the handsome Duke Cesare over there. He greeted them with a bright smile. "Hello, ladies. Oh my, you're here. We've been looking for you," they exclaimed. Following the commotion, Adele realized something. The man blessed by fate and fortune, the illegitimate child of the Buonaparty family, the man blessed by the sea goddess. He deserved all those titles, but for some reason, he didn't seem interested in them. He looked rather empty. Epony reminded, "We should go before they notice us." "Yes," Adele replied. They quietly left the bustling garden, unaware that Cesare had been watching them. "What's there?" someone asked Cesare. "I think I just saw a mermaid," he replied. The blonde girl, confused, looked in that direction, but a strong hand covered her eyes. She was just there. His actions made the girl blush in embarrassment. "You seem to like that, don't you?" Cesare whispered in her ear, causing the skin there to redden. "Will you come again today? I will wait for you." The girl remembered the previous moments with Duke Cesare. "If you promise to think of me seriously, I will meet you again. And today?" Cesare's eyes narrowed with a faint smile, but he immediately cast a cold glance at her. "The way you talk about meaningless things makes me want to slap you right away." For some reason, these people like to climb into his bed. He was curious about the blonde girl, but now that feeling was gone. Cesare imagined the mermaid with seaweed green hair that had just passed by. He turned to the blonde and spewed words of disdain. "You're cute, but also really shameless." She was stunned into silence by his harsh words. Cesare didn't care how furious the lady was as he turned away. The blonde girl, teary-eyed, pouted. "I'm going to leave." Cesare responded nonchalantly, "Be safe," as he sauntered away, leaving her sobbing. Lighting a cigar, he thought of someone else, suspecting she had just passed by. "I told you to let go of me." A girl's loud cry made him stop in his tracks. In the distance, he saw a young woman being harassed by a man. It was none other than Adele. Just moments before, she was walking towards the fountain in her tight shoes when she stumbled on a rock. The excruciating pain shot up to her head, causing her to fall forward and collapse. Epony cried out in alarm, "My lady, this is not good. I must check your foot immediately." When the shoes were removed, Adele's feet were blistered and bleeding. Epony was horrified. "My lady, you can't walk in this condition." Sweating and in pain, Adele responded, "Do you have any anesthetic? I can endure a little longer." Epony was stunned. "My lady." The maid bit her lip, holding back her anger, then bowed and declared, "I will end today's lesson. I will fetch you a chair. Please wash your feet in the meantime. I'll be back soon." The pain subsided as Adele soaked her feet in cold water. Despite the difficulty of the lesson, she knew it couldn't compare to her days surviving in the Kimurah slums. Suddenly, she heard laughter and voices behind her. It was a group of noblemen acquainted with Cesare. Alarmed, she realized they were heading towards her. "I have to hide," she thought, quickly ducking behind the fountain. The men continued chatting about Lady Lucrezia della Vale and how the young master of the della Vale family wanted her to stay and become a couple with Lord Cesare. Adele overheard everything but remained silent, hiding behind the fountain and waiting for them to leave. When it seemed quiet, she stepped out, only to immediately meet the eyes of one of the men. He smirked and called out, "Hey, guys, come here and see. There's a girl hiding behind the fountain." The sudden pain from her foot made her collapse back onto the fountain. One of the men frowned and said, "Don't be so rough." The man retorted, "I didn't push her. She fell by herself." Adele struggled to cling to the fountain's edge, her wet dress clinging to her, making her look incredibly alluring. The men were entranced, with wicked thoughts swirling in their minds. The man who had found her laughed coarsely, casting a lewd gaze over her. "Just caught a mermaid instead of a girl. Huh? Who are you? It looks like you're having trouble with those shoes. You don't seem like a noble. Your outfit looks more like a maid's attire. Why aren't you speaking? Afraid of being punished if you do?" Then he grabbed Adele roughly. "Enrico, you should stop. This is the Buonaparty manor," another man shouted. Enrico sneered. "So what? You want me to care about that while handling this maid? As if the Buonaparty house is some kind of royalty." Adele spoke up, "If you continue with this behavior, I'm afraid that might actually happen." Enrico looked surprised. "What? You mean if you keep dragging my arm like this and showing off your strength?" The men were startled. "She speaks like a noblewoman." Adele raised her voice. "Let go of me, or you'll regret it." The group was momentarily stunned, but became even more excited. "Huh? You're joking, right? Are you a governess or something? Wait, her hands are quite rough. It looks like she's a sneaky girl who sneaked in. Is that so? Well then, this is great. Many guests are waiting for her." Adele screamed and struggled to free herself from his grip, but the strength of a weak girl could not match that of a strong man. He continued to spew vulgar words, treating her like an object for amusement. Suddenly, the sound of strong footsteps echoed behind them. The men turned pale instantly. "Your Grace." The coldness and deadly aura made the men tremble with fear. "Oh, Cesare, you've returned? I think I just heard someone call me a bastard." "Cesare, isn't that right? Enrico Pecci?" Enrico, the coarse man, began to sweat profusely. Cesare continued walking towards them and said, "Lord Pecci would be very pleased to hear this." He quoted a phrase, "Please lend me a few coins." An old man came to the Buonaparty house with his weak body and said that. "And Lady Pecci even conspired with that old man to evoke my sympathy." Enrico angrily shouted, "What did you just say, you bastard?" He was about to rush at Cesare, but the others held him back. "Your Grace, please stop. Your words have gone too far." Suddenly, Cesare grabbed Henry's shoulder and spoke in a deadly tone. "It's you men who have gone too far by treating my sister like some whore." Enrico was shocked and terrified. "This girl, she's Cesare's sister?" The others were equally stunned. Wait, his sister? What does that mean?" Cesare quietly called her name. Adelaide. He waded into the fountain and draped his coat over her, his face showing deep concern and worry. Adele was bewildered by his sudden act, but when she glanced at the men, their faces were pale and fearful. She hesitantly spoke, "Brother, how did you get here?" Enrico immediately shouted, "Don't lie. Everyone in this territory knows you don't have a sister." Cesare frowned and replied in a stern voice, "Not before, but now I do. My parents have always loved each other. But why do I need to explain this to you?" Enrico was left speechless, but he wasn't ready to give up. How are we supposed to believe that, when she's barefoot and injured? Adele finally spoke up. "I apologize. I was practicing walking so that I wouldn't bring shame to the Buonaparty house, and I ended up hurting myself. I sent a pony to get medicine, but I never expected this to happen at the Buonaparty estate. The men behind them immediately turned pale. Cesare smiled slightly, satisfied with Adele's acting skills. He lifted her into his arms and concluded, I told you not to push yourself so hard. You don't need to hurt yourself like this. Adele played along, but if I become a laughingstock, Cesare interrupted her with a kiss on her forehead. As family, you shouldn't speak like that. You don't need to worry about anything. Adele was startled by his sudden action. Family? She had never heard anything like that before. Do all nobles talk this way to their families? How should I react to this fake warmth and kindness to appear like a proper lady? She hugged Cesare's face and kissed him on the cheek. Thank you, brother. Cesare was briefly surprised by her response, but he quickly resumed his feigned demeanor to play his part. The men behind them were completely convinced, even remarking that the two looked very similar. Cesare maintained a hostile attitude. So, do you still want to have fun with my sister? The men turned pale and wide-eyed. No, it was just a joke. We didn't mean it. Cesare growled. Really? What if she wasn't my sister? The men were horrified and began to stammer, pleading for forgiveness. All right then, don't worry too much, one of them said nervously. So, you'll forgive us? Cesare smirked and uttered coldly, I will torment you regardless of which family you come from. And by the way, that was just a misunderstanding on my part. On the way into a small, sunny forest with lush greenery, neither Cesare nor Adele said a word. Adele instinctively gripped Cesare's cloak tightly. Are you uncomfortable? He asked gently. Be patient a little longer. We're almost there. Cesare maintained his tender demeanor because he knew two women were hiding behind the tree, watching them. It wasn't until they returned to the estate that he finally let go and revealed his true self. How much longer do I have to keep up this act? Adele muttered. I apologize. I'll get down right away. As soon as her foot touched the ground, the pain immediately surged, causing her to collapse. Cesare, indifferent, remarked coldly, such a nuisance. Where is a pony? Adele responded. I couldn't walk, so she went to get a chair for me. Cesare arrogantly replied, that was not my command. I don't burn money to hire someone who can't even stand properly. Trembling, Adele answered, it's my fault. I didn't mean to involve you in this. Suddenly, a sharp pain surged again as Cesare's shoe pressed down on her swollen foot. He sneered, Adelaide, does this kind of thing turn you on? Do you enjoy being assaulted by several men at once? Is it something you leered from the streets? Do you not care? As long as it's some big strong man? Cesare pressed harder on her injured foot and growled, if not, then why would they want to do such vile things on the Buonaparty estate? Faced with Cesare's torment and Madame Flavia's harsh treatment, will Adele be able to fulfill her contract and become a perfect lady to deceive all the high society nobles? Please like and subscribe to the channel to see what happens next. Previous episode, Cesare stepped on Adele's injured feet and tormented her. What will Adele do to clear her name? How will their relationship develop? Stay tuned for episode 2 of the series High Society to find out. Adele, trembling, spoke up. Do you mean to say that I have seduced them? Cesare, with a cold voice, replied, you should know yourself. Adele frowned and denied, no, it's not like that. No matter. Cesare's response caused him to laugh mockingly, and then let out a triumphant guffaw. This left a pony utterly stunned. Lady Flavia has behaved rather ruthlessly, hasn't she? Cesare continued, pressing his heel into her swollen foot, and taunting her. Can't you conduct yourself properly, even for a single matter? Whether it's quarreling or gaining favor through flattery. There are better ways. Adele could only lie on the ground, groaning from the sharp pain. You excel at discarding your pride and begging, so why not behave like usual? Adele frowned and squinted, muttering an apology. I apologize. I am to blame for all of this. Cesare's shadow enveloped her like a devil, but eventually, it released the pitiful girl. It's fortunate that you know your place. Treat your wounds carefully to avoid scars. Suddenly, a pony burst through the door. Master Bonaparte, her ladyship, Cesare interrupted. I'll hear your explanation later. He stepped outside, not forgetting to order, have her take a break from lessons for the next 3 days. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving a stillness that engulfed the room. That night, Cesare, while savoring a cigar, opened a document. He is the second son who won't even inherit the family title and lacks the skills to live independently. Cesare sneered, cursing under his breath. What a worthless piece of trash, unable to stand on their own. And yet, here they are, causing a ruckus in Buonaparte's garden. Who knows what they talked about amongst themselves. But now I have to clean up this mess. Everything has gone off track. Adele Vivi had inadvertently been exposed. Replacing her with another girl was out of the question. Now, no matter what happens, I must make that Shoeshine girl, Adele, a member of the Buonaparte family. She certainly looks provocative. Her dark freen hair glistening like kelp soaked in the ocean waves, her skin as pale as salt, her needlessly large bosom. Those pieces of H must be getting aroused at the thought of her right about now. Cesare recalled the scene. He was also surprised when Adele suddenly kissed him on the cheek. Her enchanting beauty left him somewhat dazed. Perhaps I was a little aroused in that moment, too. If she affects me this much, this plan will succeed. As soon as Estra Della Vale lays eyes on the Shoeshine girl, suddenly, there was a knock on the door. It was Lady Flavia. As soon as she saw Cesare, she greeted him with a blessing from the sea goddess. Cesare smiled enigmatically. Both remained silent for a long while, until Cesare spoke first. Madam, I don't mind when you educate a rebellious child like that, but I don't want to clean up the aftermath anymore. Flavia could only apologize, but Cesare did not forget to issue a threat. Do not cause me any more trouble. You're a wise woman, so I'm sure you understand. Flavia's face turned ashen as she left the room. Outside, she could not contain her anger and took it out on Adele. She believed Adele had deliberately exhausted herself by wearing those tight shoes, making the Buonaparte family pity her, which led to her current treatment. Flavia silently cursed the cunning girl. The next morning, a strange rumor spread throughout the noble circles. Lord Cesare had fallen for a certain young lady and would not socialize with anyone else besides her. Never before had the Duke brought a girl into his mansion, and unlike his usual demeanor, he was showing a great deal of affection. This might not be an ordinary relationship. Upon hearing this shocking news, a girl slammed the table in astonishment. She quickly excused herself and left, thinking to herself, "This is serious. I must inform Lucrezia immediately." As soon as she arrived home, she wrote a letter, recounting everything. Lord Cesare held an unknown woman in his arms, and directed her towards Buonaparte's mansion. How many times must the Duke break your heart before he is satisfied? What kind of despicable woman dares to seduce him? I want to meet you as soon as possible, to ease this sorrow. The letter was sent to the Della Vale household with the utmost speed. After reading it, Lucia threw the letter into the fireplace. Duke Cesare, what is the meaning of this absurd letter? Are you trying to challenge me again? Have you heard? Lord Cesare is hiding a girl in his mansion. 3 days ago, when the Orania delegation brought the mermaid's heart and announced it publicly, someone saw him carefully embracing a girl. Rumor has it that Enrico Pecci teased her and was punished by the Duke. The Buonaparte family has withdrawn all the large sums of money that the Fay family had borrowed for business. Who is this girl? Who could make Cesare Buonaparte fall so deeply in love? The rumor spread quickly, making Lady Flavia anxious. She was determined to expel that cunning, arrogant Shoeshine girl from the Buonaparte household. Flavia burst through the door, shouting, "Adelaide, Adelaide," but her gaze froze. How was it possible? In just 3 days, how had that girl become so stunningly beautiful? Her once gaunt cheeks were now full. Perhaps the wounds on her filthy body had nearly healed. She looked like a siren from the legends, enchanting sailors. Suddenly, Adele's voice brought her back to reality. Flavia snapped out of her thoughts and continued to berate Adele, accusing her of deliberately wandering around to seduce noblemen with her drenched body and bare, crude feet. Adele, despite not fully absorbing the insults, kept her head bowed and apologized. Epone respectfully interjected, "I may not know much about etiquette like Lady Flavia, but I think Lady Adele already carries herself with a certain bella figura. I believe all of this progress is thanks to Lady Flavia's dedicated guidance. Why not proceed with the next lessons so that she can learn even more?" Flavia was deeply annoyed. That girl had clearly bewitched Epone to garner sympathy. Yet, with Lord Cesare watching, she couldn't do anything drastic. Finally, she reluctantly agreed to Epone's suggestion, though she vowed to educate the girl rigorously, just as she had been teaching her to walk properly. The lesson ended in the afternoon, and Flavia returned to her residence. The smoothness of today's lesson left her irritated, yet she couldn't help but admire Adele's quick learning and proficiency. Unlike other young ladies who would whine and sulk over the smallest mistakes, Adele showed no laziness that could be used against her. As she fumed, a bright voice called her name. It was Lucrezia de Vale, looking radiant and beautiful, a sight that even Flavia had to acknowledge. Lucia was a woman admired by many, her presence like a blessing from the sea goddess. Lady Flavia, you look as healthy as ever. Lucia greeted. Flavia, curious, asked, do you have business at Buonaparte? Luca replied, I heard that everyone in high society is here, so I decided to visit. It seems there will be a grand party for the Iranian delegates, right? Flavia responded, I suppose so. While continuing the conversation, Flavia mentioned Duke Cesare, causing Lucia's cheeks to flush slightly. She wore a sorrowful and delicate expression as she said, I wonder how Lord Cesare is doing. I've been grounded, so I haven't seen him in a while. Nothing significant has happened, right? Flavia surmised that Lucia had already heard the rumors. Since the truth would eventually come out, she decided to introduce the girl as Lord Cesare's sister. With this in mind, Flavia began, it seems you've heard the rumor. She is. But she hesitated, creating an awkward silence between them. Luke, maintaining her composure, politely asked, Madam Flavia, have I been impolite in asking about this matter? Flavia stood silently, contemplating. Driving that Shoeshine girl away didn't necessarily have to be her responsibility. A sly smile formed on Flavia's lips. Lord Cesare has already warned me once. Who knows what might happen if I persist? But what if Lady Lucia gets involved? Despite Lucia's elegance and politeness, she couldn't dominate the position of Cesare's fiancée with just naivety. Flavia, now unreserved, spoke with a hint of insinuation. Lady, listen carefully. The girl in the rumor has the direct bloodline of the Buonaparte family. Lou's eyes widened in shock. Heavens, so Aunt Katerina and Uncle Rowan have a daughter? I must have misunderstood. How embarrassing. Flavia corrected her. It's not just a misunderstanding. Lady A is indeed a member of the Buonaparte family, the sister of Duke Cesare. Flavia turned to leave, but not before adding, officially, that's the story. But who knows? She might as well be someone from the streets. He cast a meaningful glance towards Lucia, implying that she should directly ask Katerina and Rowan for clarification. Any astute person would catch the underlying message in her words. Lucrezia remained silent for a long moment before lifting her head. She smiled sweetly and said, Thank you for enlightening me, Flavia. Thanks to you, I have been enlightened. One day, Adele longed to take a stroll outside, but hesitated, fearing the Duke's reprimand after the last incident. However, Epone assured her that since the Buonaparte guests would be frequenting the Lion Garden, Adele could walk in the aquatic garden instead. From that day on, Epone meticulously tracked the schedule of every guest in the mansion, becoming unusually friendly. Adele smiled softly, attributing it to sympathy. She thanked Epone and sipped her tea, while Epone watched her with affectionate eyes. Just as Epone had said, the aquatic garden was beautiful, its humid atmosphere soothing the soul. Suddenly, a voice exclaimed, Oh my, someone is here. Adele turned towards the sound and saw Lucrezia. She hadn't expected to encounter her there. Epone frowned and whispered, That's Lady Lucrezia de Vale. Hearing that name, Adele's eyes widened. She clutched her skirt and grew tense. Already meeting her felt overwhelming. But Adele managed to lift her skirt and greet Lucrezia with a noble courtesy, invoking the blessing of the sea goddess. Her refined demeanor surprised Lucrezia, who quickly regained her composure and smiled. I don't believe I've seen you at any social gatherings or balls, Lucrezia remarked. Adele replied, I haven't appeared before the upper society yet. Lucrezia introduced herself. I am Lucrezia of the de Vale family. May I ask which family you belong to? Despite her anxiety, Adele regained her composure and answered brightly, I am Buonaparte. Lucrezia feigned shock. Buonaparte? Is this some kind of joke that's trending in high society? Forgive me, but I was recently released from confinement and might not be aware. Adele calmly replied, As you heard, I am a member of the Buonaparte family. Due to various circumstances, I have not lived with my brother, Duke Cesare, from a young age. Lucrezia's tone turned cold. Your brother? So you're staying in the same mansion as Duke Cesare, in Buonaparte's residence? Adele confirmed, yes, but before she could continue, Lucrezia interrupted with a smile. Since becoming a Buonaparte, Have you ever considered leave Fortnite and explore the land of? Adele, not grasping the implication, replied that she wished to stay close to her family. Lucrezia's voice grew colder. Family, you say? An oppressive silence settled over the beautiful garden. The pressure from Lucrezia made Adele feel stifled. Was it because she was a true noblewoman that Adele felt so nervous? Another obstacle. Lucrezia's stern tone startled Adele, making her look up, only to see Lucrezia feigning politeness as she excused herself. She sneered and dropped a loaded remark. Let's hope he can protect you from the killers. Adele stood frozen, feeling a whirlpool of fear pulling her down again. Lucrezia clearly knew something. Epone, worried, stated she would report this to the Duke, noting that while Lady Lucrezia might not confront him directly, the hidden dangers beneath the surface were far more menacing than the obvious ones. On her way back home, Lucrezia sobbed and muttered to herself in the carriage, causing her maid to worry. Hayes, it seems Duke Cesare has been enchanted by that wild woman, she cried. Her maid, alarmed, asked, What do you mean, my lady? But she's his sister, isn't she? Lucrezia, tears streaming, continued. Her hands are not those of a noblewoman. He detests me so much. He'd rather call someone not a true lady his sister. If he isn't bewitched by her, then he surely plans to marry her off to my brother. H exclaimed. Then you must act before she completely ensnares Duke Cesare. Moreover, if you give up now, she'll become a member of the Delavale family. At all costs, she must be expelled. Lucrezia, sniffling, asked, But how? H suggested, Eliminate her. Lucrezia shook her head. No, I don't want to harm anyone. I'm too afraid. Her maid, seeing her mistress's frailty, reassured, Don't worry, I'll help you. Hazel's determination thrilled Lucrezia. Are you serious? She asked, and the maid's earnest loyalty made Lucrezia very happy, not realizing she was falling into Lucrezia's trap of using others to do her dirty work. One morning, a procession of carriages arrived at the Buonaparty mansion. The guests marveled at the grandeur of the estate, while the servants were busily decorating and refurbishing the rooms. That day, Adele wanted to see her brother. As she was about to knock, she remembered she had been told not to. She opened the door and a stranger saw her. He immediately informed Cesare, Sir, you have a visitor. He turned to look at his supposed sister and flashed a bright smile. Adelaide, how is your foot? Adele responded, Thanks to your care, my foot is completely healed. Cesare mocked, Oh, I took care of you, did I? Adele replied, I was just being polite. Seeing Adele hesitate in his study, Cesare smirked and pressed for the reason. She made a surprising request. Can I attend the social gathering tonight? Both Cesare and the stranger in the room were taken aback. Cesare said, All right. Is that all you came here to ask? Adele answered, I've just moved here and would like to attend the social event in the capital. Cesare chuckled. I didn't know my sister was so charming. It seems you're adapting well here. While they were talking, the stranger kept glancing at Cesare expectantly. Cesare introduced, This is Gigi Manfredi. This is my little sister Adelaide Bonaparte. Gigi cheerfully introduced himself. Hello, I am Cesare's personal assistant and also the president of the Ston Trading Company under Buonaparte's management. Please take care of me in the future. Gigi seemed very sociable and admired Adele's beauty, even comparing her to a mermaid. Much to Cesare's amusement, observing Cesare's easy conversation, Adele felt a surge of suppressed resentment. From the moment she met him, every corner of her mind felt like it was being gradually severed by a sharp knife. She decided to forget about the leather shoe that had trampled her foot and the words that pierced her heart like thorns. Cesare suddenly asked, You've met Lucrezia, haven't you? I heard you received quite an interesting warning. Adele clenched her fists and replied, Yes, if you can call it a warning. Cesare affirmed, It surely was. Epone is more adept at the subtle language of nobility than a street shoeshine. How curious. I wonder how they got wind of this. After the party, I'll assign a bodyguard to accompany you. Adele nodded and excused herself. As the door closed, Gigi worried that if a bodyguard were assigned, it would take at least 2 days for them to arrive. During that time, Adele would be unprotected and might encounter Lucrezia at the party. Will she be all right during this time? Gigi asked. Cesare turned away. I believe nothing will happen at the Buonaparty mansion. Prepare an old galley, something a bit worn out. Gigi hesitated, but accepted the order, knowing that he was about to carry out something unpleasant. At the Buonaparty party, Everyone was buzzing with talk about Flavia. Lorden seemed to be striving to reclaim her central position within the elite circles, especially now that the Buonaparty family had summoned her. She knew her family was falling behind, but leveraging the Buonaparty family could solve everything. May the sea goddess bless you. Are you enjoying yourself tonight, Madame Flavia? Flavia turned to see Lucrezia. She greeted her politely. May the goddess bless you too. Are you enjoying yourself, Lady Lucrezia? Lucrezia smiled brightly. Of course. This is a Buonaparty party after all. The decorations are elegant and pleasing to the eye. Duke Cesare truly has an eye for beauty. So, at this beautiful Buonaparty mansion, shall we discuss the person who needs to be eliminated? Flavia's expression darkened immediately. I have nothing more to say on that matter. It's all up to you now. Lucrezia gave a threatening smile. Then perhaps I should speak with Duke Cesare. I have no choice but to reveal that you disclosed Lady Ade's origins to me. Flavia frowned, her eyes widening. What do you mean by that? I only did it with the best intentions for you. Lucrezia replied maliciously. Then I am returning your favor. Duke Cesare trusted you, yet you revealed this secret to me. She stepped closer to Flavia. I don't wish to confront you. We have only one enemy. I just need your assistance. Our arrangement will remain a secret. Lucrezia's foxy smile enraged Flavia, but she couldn't do anything. She clenched her teeth, controlling herself, and faced Lucrezia head-on. What do you want? In the ballroom, couples were dancing to lively music, while Adele was still preparing for the party. Epony, aren't you coming with me? She asked. Epony replied, I'm not a noble, so I'm not obliged to attend. But you are, Adele said uncertainly. I'm not sure. Epony complimented. You look beautiful. Many eyes will be on you. Adele mumbled. Really? She worried that exposing her vulnerabilities would only encourage others to harm her. Sensing her hesitation, Epony shared that attending such parties was enjoyable because a Buonaparty lady never wore the same gown twice. Even hats, parasols, gloves, and jewelry would be newly purchased. You'll visit Bellastella Street every day to choose them, Epony explained. Adele was surprised, having never visited that street while living in the Kimurah slums. It wasn't forbidden for a Shoeshine to enter, but it seemed too bright and beautiful to approach. She mused, that street must be lovely. Epony replied, of course. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Who could it be at this hour? Epony went to check and saw a familiar face. May the goddess bless you, Epony exclaimed. Madame Flavia appeared, looking urgent. Epony, I have something urgent to discuss. The master requires another report concerning Duke Cesare. Lady Flavia urgently needed the record book from Epony. Upon hearing the word master, Epony immediately agreed. She informed Adele that she would be absent for a while, casting a worried glance towards her before leaving. Under Flavia's urging, the door slowly closed behind them, and no one noticed the malicious glint in Flavia's eyes. Sitting in her room, Adele could still hear the music from the social gathering. The curiosity about Bellastella Street gnawed at her, making it impossible to concentrate on her book. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Adele thought, could it be Epony? But how could she be back so soon? She hesitated as the knocking grew louder. Then, a voice from nowhere said, don't open the door. Adele looked around in confusion. What was that? I heard this voice before. There's no one else here but me. Am I imagining things? Suddenly, the person outside opened the door without permission. It was a young maid. Pardon, my lady, but I had to enter due to an urgent matter. Adele was surprised to see such a young maid. What's the matter? The maid replied, the master of the mansion has summoned you. Adele asked, my brother? But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. This maid seemed younger than the other servants at Buonaparty, and her clothes appeared too large. Despite her worries, she followed the maid, who said Cesare wanted to see her. All right, let's go, Adele said. As they ascended the stairs, the maid mentioned that the master was on the rooftop. Adele felt a growing sense of unease, but knew Cesare wasn't one to explain himself. We're here, the maid announced. The rooftop door opened, and a strong gust of wind blew Adele's shawl away. She rushed after it, giving the maid the chance to push her forcefully. I'm sorry. The maid screamed as Adele plummeted from the rooftop. A loud thud echoed through the moonlit night. In the banquet hall, everyone raised their glasses to toast Duke Cesare. They admired his achievements so young, a member of the council, and instrumental in helping the neighboring emperor ascend to the throne. bolstering diplomatic relations and strengthening his influence within the council. He lacked nothing: looks, lineage, business acumen, and political prowess. Everyone was curious about who such a remarkable man would marry. Feeling weary, Cesare stepped out onto the balcony for some fresh air. He leaned back in his chair, lit a cigar, and finally found a moment of peace. Cesare noticed something etched on the ceiling and smirked. Ah, Caterina Buonaparti and Ran Buonaparti. On a night like this, during a ball, those two would dance together while I sat on the most distinguished chair in the room, receiving a cursed cake from them. They spent hours together, lost in their own world, untouchable by anyone. As he puffed on his cigar, he mused, places like this always have a peculiar charm. Suddenly, a young man burst through the door, exclaiming, Cesare, the ladies are eager to meet you. What are you doing here? Cesare frowned at the intruder. Ruth, what's with that getup? You show up to my party dressed like that? Are you sober? Ruth ignored his sharp words and flaunted his looks even more, which only annoyed Cesare further. Ruth pointed to a shawl and said, I was just passing by when this fell from the sky. It must be fate. Cesare sneered. Are you so poor you pick up things from the ground? Ruth gave him a sidelong glance and said, after dealing with Lady Lucrezia, shouldn't you entrust your heart to a woman? Finding this shawl might be destiny. Cesare scowled. I'm more worried about the girl Lucrezia is likely tormenting. I'm definitely not getting married. Then he noticed the initials K and B on the shawl's corner. Caterina Buonaparte's shawl, now used by Adele Vivi. But why did it fall from the sky? He asked Ruth. Where did you find this? Meanwhile, a hand was desperately clinging to the rough edge of the wall. The young maid from earlier gasped in horror. Adele furrowed her brows and realized, you're Lady Lucrezia's maid, aren't you? Did she order you to do this? The maid panicked, and Adele seized the moment to command, pull me up, and I won't reveal your mistress's role in this. The maid, trembling, muttered, no, Lady Lucrezia will be disappointed. Adele shouted, you fool. Do you think Lucrezia will spare your life after this? The maid's face contorted in fear. What? No, Lady Lucrezia wouldn't do that. Adele continued, Lucrezia will kill you to silence you after this. The maid, now desperate, snarled, no, Lady Lucrezia wouldn't. She then ruthlessly stomped on Adele's hands, causing her to scream and curse with each blow. Finally, Adele's hands gave way, and she plummeted. A loud thud echoed through the quiet, moonlit night, startling a bird perched on a broken branch. Meanwhile, Cesare Buonaparti, the man blessed by fate and the gods, lay on the stone floor, grimacing and stargazing. His face tensed as he muttered, ah, my spine. Sister, are you all right? His eyes widened when he saw Adele trembling in his arms after the fall. Cesare smirked. If you don't want me to touch you in the same way, stop grabbing my chest. Adele quickly moved away from him, still shaken by the ordeal. Cesare, feeling weary, thought to himself, who is bothering her this time? Adele frowned and looked up. I was pushed down by a girl dressed as a maid from the Buonaparti family. She said you summoned me, so I followed her to the rooftop. Cesare asked, I summoned you? He glanced up to the higher floor, catching sight of the maid's figure disappearing. Adele added, I'm certain she is Lady Lucrezia's maid. Ruth quickly dashed upstairs to catch the culprit, but by the time he arrived, she had already fled. He signaled to Cesare, hey, Cesare, the culprit escaped too fast. I couldn't catch her. Cesare sighed. Of course she fled. Why did you even climb up there? Ruth, confused, asked. What? I can't hear you. Speak louder. Ignoring Ruth, Cesare turned to Adele. Were you planning to meet me dressed like that? Adele hurriedly tried to cover herself, since her shawl had flown away. Cesare, exasperated, said, a shawl is not armor. Don't mistake it for such, she explained. It was an urgent matter, so I. Cesare smirked. So if I needed you for something urgent, you would rush over without thinking, just like this? He couldn't quite read her expression at that moment. Taking off his outer coat, he draped it over her, feeling a sudden pain in his back. He winced and clutched his back. Adele noticed something was wrong and knelt beside him, concerned. Are you all right? Cesare, thinking to himself, wondered, is she really worried about me now? He smirked and teased, if I said I was in pain, would you treat me in my private room? Their faces were closer than ever, and just as Cesare was about to say something suggestive, Ruth came running back, shouting, Cesare, my lady, are you both alright? Cesare shot him a withering glare which left Ruth confused. Come to my office, Cesare ordered. A doctor had been called to treat Cesare's injury. Fortunately, it wasn't too serious, but he was advised to avoid strenuous activities and stop smoking for a while. Cesare sighed in disappointment at giving up his favorite pastime. While the doctor gave his instructions, Adele stood by, feeling guilty for following the maid despite her doubts. Suddenly, a pony burst in, exclaiming, Master, I was looking for the lady since she wasn't in her room. What happened? Cesare replied, just in time. Now, explain what happened. Aponi, with a bowed head, recounted the entire incident without leaving out any details. After finishing, she apologized deeply. I was suspicious when the master requested a report, but it was Madame Flavia's order. Cesare, understanding, said, It's all right. Just then, his assistant, Gigi, entered and informed, As you instructed, I have detained Madame Flavia Lorden and ordered the knights to arrest anyone attempting to flee. Cesare coldly asked, Have you prepared the galley? Gigi responded, Yes, everything is ready as you ordered. Gigi hesitantly replied, Yes, sir. We will transport Madame Flavia to the ship. Cesare extinguished his cigar and grinned, Excellent. Now, bring Lady Lucrezia here immediately. That night, under the still visible moon, there was a knock on Cesare's door. Master, it's Gigi, he called out. Adele was surprised to hear the knock, as entering Cesare's room usually didn't require one. Cesare responded warmly, Come in. Adele had deduced the reason behind not knocking on Cesare's door was to act as a warning signal. Cesare glanced at her and ordered, Adelaide, come here and sit beside me. She moved closer, sitting about a hand's width away from him. The door opened, and Gigi announced, Lady Lucrezia Della Vale has arrived. Cesare prompted Adele to sit closer. Lucrezia entered, her face flushed with excitement at seeing Cesare. She greeted him, May the sea goddess bless you, Duke Cesare. I apologize for meeting you in this state. Lucrezia was stunned by the scene before her, Cesare holding Adele closely. Her eyes widened in shock. Duke Cesare? She stammered, glaring at Adele, who was being embraced by him. A terrifying aura emanated from Lucrezia. Cesare calmly said, Don't just stand there, Lucrezia. Sit down. Regaining her composure, Lucrezia blushed and smiled. Yes, of course. She sat down, trying to maintain her composure. Following her was a new maid, which caught Adele's attention. Cesare questioned, Is this your usual maid? Lucrezia delicately replied, Yes, her name is A. Cesare looked skeptical. That doesn't seem right. Lucrezia quickly covered up. What do you mean? Ains has always been my maid, right? Ains? The maid nervously confirmed, Yes, my lady. Cesare, with a mocking tone, remarked, Lady Lucrezia, you certainly act swiftly. If it weren't for the lack of an engagement, we would make excellent business partners. Lucrezia, sweating, stammered, Thank you, my lord. Cesare continued to tease, Do you really want to thank me for that? Feigning innocence, Lucrezia replied, Why yes. Adele, observing this, felt disgusted. It seemed Lucrezia had completely forgotten her murderous intent towards her, now solely focused on Cesare. After a moment, Lucrezia asked, Duke Cesare, are you in pain? Cesare glanced at Adele, signaling her to play along. I caught a mermaid falling from the sky, he said, embracing Adele and kissing her forehead. I'd rather be in pain than see you hurt. Adele, catching on, replied, I'm glad, but I don't want you to be hurt either. Lucrezia's eyes blazed with jealousy as she imagined tearing Adele apart. Trying to maintain her composure, she offered, I think I can take care of you. Cesare interrupted, It's not your fault, so you don't need to trouble yourself. Besides, my sister is here to take care of me. Lucrezia trembled. Having a beautiful girl like her take care of you, alone in one room, might lead to misunderstandings. Cesare laughed heartily. She's my sister, Lady Lucrezia. Of course, it's a waste for her beauty to be promised to your brother. Lucrezia's smile froze as she processed Cesare's words, realizing the complexity and the implications of the situation she found herself in. The room fell silent as Cesare continued, I'll let this go for now, but if you pull such dirty tricks again, our families will truly become enemies. Meanwhile, Lady Flavia, detained in a room, was struggling with her thoughts. She was certain Lucrezia's plan had failed and that her name had been revealed. Suddenly, The door behind her creaked open, and a man entered with a murderous look in his eyes. Madame Flavia Lorden, this is an order from the Buonaparty family. Please come with us, he said. Flavia was taken away in a carriage, her desperate shouts ignored. I want to see Duke Cesare. I can explain, she cried. But the man remained silent. Flavia started trembling with fear, wondering where they were taking her. Blindfolded, she strained to catch any sounds, and eventually, she heard seagulls and the crash of waves. The port, she thought. When the blindfold was removed, she saw another man before her, who greeted her with a mocking tone. I've been waiting for you, Madame Flavia. Flavia, her face darkening, yelled, please take me to the Duke. This is all a misunderstanding. Let me explain. I was threatened. I had no choice. The man smirked. Threatened? Wasn't it you who revealed the young lady's identity? Have you forgotten your Omerta oath? As a vassal, you violated the most crucial rule. The Omerta oath was a vow of absolute loyalty, prohibiting the disclosure of any secrets. Breaking it warranted severe punishment. Flavia cried out, no, it's not like that. I only gave a hint. Gigi pretended to be puzzled. A very clear hint, it seems. He turned away, dismissing her. That's not my concern. Proceed with the next step. Gigi gestured towards the ship and introduced it. This is a gale, built in 840. It carries flour, hardtack, salt, sugar, biscuits, soap, and candles. With these supplies, you can sail to Sue alone. Flavia's eyes widened in horror. Sue, that's the farthest place in Santa. Crossing the sea in this old ship, even a small wave could capsize it. The figurehead of the goddess isn't even on the bow. How can I receive her blessings? This is a death sentence. Gigi added, if you return safely, Duke Cesare will consider forgiving you. After all, it's the sea goddess's will. Desperate, Flavia pleaded, Sir Gigi, please, let me explain to the Duke. Just one chance, let me see him. Gigi smiled and waved. Have a pleasant journey. Beware the wrath of the sea goddess. Flavia screamed as she was dragged away. Please, just one chance. It's for Duke Cesare, for the Buonaparty family. The old ship set sail towards the dawn, leaving Flavia's cries behind. Meanwhile, Adele was being helped with her bath by a maid. She asked in a low voice, have they found the maid who pushed me? Epone, with a pained expression, replied, she was found in a drainage ditch. Hard to recognize because her face was slashed multiple times. Her hair matched your description, and her clothes were stripped to destroy evidence. She had a severe wound in the same spot where the master was injured. Adele surmised that Lucrezia had exacted revenge on the maid for causing Cesare's injury. Adele inquired about the punishment for Lucrezia but learned that Cesare couldn't take any concrete action without specific evidence. Financial penalties would also raise public outcry, as Lucrezia was well loved in both high society and among the common people. Despite the unfairness, Adele replied, I understand, surprising Epone, who quickly changed the subject. Good news, my lady. Starting today, you will have a break from your lessons. The master has reviewed your progress and decided you can rest and focus on healing your foot. Adele asked, what about Madame Flavia? Epone looked somber, but didn't say anything, the silent expression conveying Madame Flavia's fate, much like a soap bubble popping and vanishing. Epone explained that Cesare was finding a new teacher for Adele and that lessons would resume once the arena delegation departed. Seeing Epone's demeanor, Adele realized Flavia had been dealt with. By the way, when would you like to change clothes to go out? Epone asked. Adele, puzzled, asked, go out? Epone clarified, aren't you the one taking care of the master's injury? Adele's eyes widened. Me? For the Duke? Cesare, with a playful smile, showed his dimples. You've arrived, my dear sister. Adele approached him and set her medical kit on the table. Well then, the wound, she began, but stopped mid-sentence, shocked as Cesare removed his shirt, revealing a well-toned body with broad shoulders and a slim waist. Scars on his arms indicated he had faced dangerous situations. Above his waist, near the spine, was a prominent mole. Cesare, noticing her stare, teased, you're looking at me for quite a while. Adele blushed, realizing she had been staring. She fumbled to explain, oh, it's just that. Cesare smirked. Don't get too excited by beautiful things. I'm not. Adele protested. Cesare, unfazed, lay down to let her treat his wound. Frustrated, she turned to get the medical supplies. Why did you ask me to treat you when I'm not a professional? Cesare replied nonchalantly, because Gigi is noisy and Epone always looks annoyed. Besides, I got injured because of you, so you should take responsibility. Unable to argue, Adele began cutting the bandages. The room fell silent except for the sound of scissors. Cesare lay there, enjoying the attention. Once all the bandages were off, Adele wiped the sweat from her face. Why am I so nervous? It feels like being in a room with a monster, she thought. Holding a box of ointment, she said, I'll apply the medicine now, but this wound is bigger than I thought. It stretches from your back to your side. Cesare felt every action of hers, and as she reached the limit of her reach, she said, Brother, I can't reach the front part of the wound. Please turn around a bit. Cesare nonchalantly replied, I don't want to. Adele pleaded, just a little bit, please. He remained unmoved. Can I sit on your bed for a moment? She asked hesitantly. Cesare froze for a second. You don't need my permission for things like that, he said. Adele blushed slightly. Thank you then. Please excuse me. She leaned over to reach his wound, her ample chest and long hair brushing against him, causing him discomfort. Stop teasing me, he muttered, but the tray of medical supplies fell to the floor, and he grabbed her wrist tightly, causing her to gasp. Adele opened her eyes slightly, seeing his face clearly. Since her fall, no one had asked if she was all right. Despite being ignored by everyone, she didn't feel wronged. Instead, she looked at Cesare with genuine concern. Why is she so foolish? He thought. If not for me, she would have died. Is she really worried about me now? Or does she have another motive? Even the way her shoulders trembled to earn my sympathy, it all finally makes senses. Unless she had an ulterior motive, she would never worry. Stomped on her foot. Adele whispered, Brother. Cesare interrupted. Call me Cesare. I don't want you to call me brother when we're in bed. Adele, panicking, said, Brother, why are you acting like this? Cesare chuckled. I want you to stop being so adorably naive, Adele Vivi. I'm a man, and you're a woman. I've watched you for a long time. You're very cute, and your foolishness is just as charming. I'll give you the love you want, so stop pretending to be clueless. So, Cesare and Adele have made some unexpected progress in this episode. Will they genuinely develop feelings for each other? Or is it simply a case of mutual exploitation? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to follow the series High Society. Previous episode, Adele was pushed off the terrace by Lucrezia's maid, but fortunately, Duke Cesare caught her, though he got injured in the process. Will this incident bring them closer together? Stay tuned for episode 3 of the Manhwa High Society. In Cesare's life, there had been countless women, so he never expected to fall for a supposed sister like her. But now, he found himself captivated. Smirking, he thought, it seems I've chosen an excellent actress. He believed she was feigning innocence to seduce him and ruin his life. I'll do as you wish, so open your mouth, he said, leaning closer to kiss her. But just before their lips met, Cesare snapped back to reality. Wait, he thought, if I go any further with her, what about the contract with the Delavale family? He stopped abruptly, his thoughts in turmoil. Cesare furrowed his brow and looked at Adele's heaving chest. After contemplating for a moment, he restrained himself. Next time, he thought, I can unbuckle my belt and make it up to her if she feels treated unfairly. She's stunningly beautiful. It's such a waste to only experience her once and then end everything. Suddenly, a sharp pair of scissors was pressed against Cesare's throat, shocking him. Ah shit, he thought. Looking into her murderous eyes, Cesare became intrigued. You're quite the crazy bitch, he said. Why are you holding such a dangerous thing? Planning to cut my throat? Adele replied calmly, if necessary. Cesare glared. And you think you have the guts to follow through? She didn't hesitate. You forget I come from Kimurah. The scissors dug deeper into his neck, but Cesare maintained his smile, knowing she was serious. He grinned fiercely and swiftly disarmed her, holding her trembling arm. Considering how fired up you were, weren't you a little too easy to subdue? How foolish, he mocked. Adele enraged. How licentious. Cesare didn't get angry. Instead, her fury excited him. He glanced around, realizing he had never felt this way with any other woman. He released her and casually, So, you dislike me, Adele Vivi? Adele hesitated, then frowned. I don't hate you. Her answer surprised Cesare, but Adele firmly added, However, that doesn't mean I want to do such indecent things with you. Cesare, stunned, burst into hearty laughter, which triggered his pain again. He instructed her to apply the medicine so he could leave quickly. Sitting upright on the bed, he sneakily watched her, pondering, what should I do with this girl? I no longer want to hand her over to the Delavale family. In the parliamentary office, 8 people sat around a round table, praising the Buonaparty family for their warm reception of the Orina delegation. One man asked, I heard you invited Lady Lucrezia to your office after the ball. Are we going to hear good news? Cesare nonchalant replied, it's nothing special. I just needed to talk to her. The man inquired, what could it be about? Cesare smirked. It's about my sister. She was born after my parents left the family and has now been sent back home. Everyone was astonished. Your sister? They exclaimed. Cesare continued, I understand you all have many questions, but soon enough, my sister will make her debut at a noble gathering in a few months. Then, she can meet the son of the Delavale family. The other members were taken aback. Cesare turned to an older man. I'm preparing everything to marry Adelaide off to the Delavale family. I can't keep hiding my young, spirited sister for myself. The man, Luca di la Vale, looked at Cesare with a complex expression. Cesare continued with a mocking tone, isn't this good news for your family? This way, Lady Lucrezia won't have to marry the wayward son of the Buonaparty family. One day, while the Buonaparty mansion was lively with songbirds chirping, a sudden scream sent them flying. Oh, my lady. Gigi rushed over, his face beaming with energy despite the early hour. You look beautiful today, Lady Adele. You never cease to enchant me every time I see you. Even the mermaids of the sea would be envious of your beauty. Cesare, after giving Gigi a playful bump on the head, warmly greeted Adele. May the goddess bless you, Adele. She bowed in return, noticing it was the first time they had seen each other since she had treated his wound. Cesare, noticing her discomfort, smirked. I called you here for another reason. Don't look so annoyed. Adele hesitated, her stance confusing both Gigi and the maid, Aponi. Cesare ordered, come in, Sir Iger Corer. From today, he will be your bodyguard. Adele thought, Corer? Isn't that Aponi's surname? Seeing her confusion, Cesare added, Iger is Aponi's brother. However, Adele found it odd, since he looked much younger than Aponi. She quickly remembered her manners and greeted Iger properly. Gigi praised her. She's very observant. Cesare replied, if she wasn't, she wouldn't have noticed that the maid wasn't from the Buonaparty family. Gigi exclaimed, she hasn't even been here a month. Then he checked his watch and said, it's time to go. Cesare, feeling nostalgic, sighed, time flies, doesn't it? Let's end here for today, he murmured to himself, even if she's my sister, I can't keep her forever. Adele felt uneasy hearing this, while Gigi and the others didn't understand the hidden meaning. As she walked through the hall, Adele cursed Cesare internally, that arrogant, reckless bastard. He was charming and exciting at first, but then he completely changed his attitude. She recalled noticing a mole under his eye that she found oddly attractive. What am I thinking? He's just a worthless playboy. She chastised herself, confused by her feelings. Suddenly, the head butler approached, and Aponi hurriedly asked, why are you here? The butler hesitated before whispering something that made Aponi's face pale. She told Adele, lady, the mistress has arrived and wants to see you. You need to go to the Star House immediately. In her private room, Aponi was adjusting Adele's dress while voicing her suspicions that the mistress had surely learned about the contract between them. Therefore, she must not lie. If she found it difficult to answer, she should remain silent and say nothing. Aponi saw the maid's worry and felt particularly tense, but nodded. All done. May the sea goddess bless you, Aponi said. As the door opened, Adele's eyes widened. The entire room was bathed in a dark backdrop, but glass patterns and open windows gave the impression of stepping into a space filled with countless stars. In the middle of the room was a tea table and a woman who had been waiting for Adele. Adele couldn't hide her concern, as according to Sans tradition, she had to wait for her superior to greet her first. However, the woman remained eerily silent. After a while, Adele decided to bow and said, May the goddess bless you. I apologize for not greeting you sooner. My name is Adele Babi Buonpate. The woman silently scrutinized her, making Adele almost hold her breath. Suddenly, the woman handed out a notebook with the words, May the goddess bless you. I am Ava. This woman is widely recognized and nominated for the chairman position. Ava Buon. She is regarded as highly competent. After some time in the mansion, I learned that she is mute due to a physical defect. Ava continued to write on the paper and invited Adele to have tea. Adele sipped the tea and admired its wonderful flavor. Ava continued writing, but then hesitated and turned to another page. Adele couldn't understand what she wanted to convey. Suddenly, the paper revealed the words, "You truly are a beautiful girl." Adele hesitated, responding, "You're too kind with your praise." The notebook continued, "Cesare must like you a lot, right?" Adele pondered and couldn't help but wonder why Ava kept asking if she felt comfortable here or if Cesare was taking good care of her. Suddenly reminded of his annoying face, especially when he got overly enthusiastic with his pretend sister, Adele closed her eyes, trying to find the right explanation but couldn't. Ava wrote again, "Are you in a romantic relationship with Cesare?" Adele's eyes widened as she read the words. She hesitated before responding, "No, absolutely not," Ava gently reassured. "Little one, speak freely. I am on your side." Adele replied, "That is not the issue. I haven't even thought about it. I don't care where you come from." Still determined, Adele stated, "Don't test my resolve. I don't approach my brother with ulterior motives." Ava silently observed the girl sitting opposite her, who was visibly upset. She then wrote on the paper, "Forgive my rudeness. I initially thought you were an imposter, but if you truly love Cesare, I will take you to another family." Upon reading this, Adele's eyes widened in shock. This situation was far from pleasant, but as siblings, we can't love each other that way. So, little one, you don't need to go to the Della Vale family in place of Cesare. Adele couldn't believe what Ava was suggesting. "I acknowledge you as a part of the Buon Pate family. I can give you more than what Cesare has promised." Adele couldn't hide her surprise. What did she really want? She said that if I loved Cesare, she would take me to another family, but if not, I would still stay here without having to marry into the Della Vale family. Ava maintained her smile, but her face showed clear sorrow. "I really just want Cesare to be loved by someone. The boy has lacked affection since he was a child, and Lady Lucia cannot give him that happiness." As they were talking, the door suddenly opened, accompanied by the familiar voice of Cesare. "My dear madam, you seem quite curious, don't you?" He quickly approached and took the notebook. Cesare frowned as he read what Ava had written, then smirked. "She must have bothered you a lot, didn't she?" He tossed the notebook aside, its thud echoing through the room. Cesare and Ava exchanged smiles for a moment, then he kissed her cheek and greeted her. "I'm very pleased to see you. It's been a long time, hasn't it? But we have somewhere to go now," he said, helping Adele and asking Ava for permission to leave. "Take care until next time." Adele politely nodded and said goodbye, watching the door close slowly, with Lady Ava's gentle expression still present. Outside, Cesare asked her how she had responded to Ava's proposal. Adele replied, "I declined." Cesare praised, "Good. She tends to be overly affectionate towards her grandson." Adele glanced at him with a puzzled expression. "But this way leads to the main door." "We're going the wrong way," Cesare replied. "I told you we needed to go somewhere." And Adele suddenly realized those words weren't idle talk. On the carriage ride, Adele couldn't stop marveling at the luxury. She had never thought she would sit in something so opulent. Moreover, the Buonaparte family's carriage was the finest. It was so renowned and lavish that it was featured in the newspapers in Santa, a place with narrow, difficult-to-expand roads. Just one carriage was enough to demonstrate the family's grandeur. When the large carriage pulled by 4 horses passed through the inner city, it seemed as if the entire empire was trembling before the grandeur of the Buonaparte family. The sun-drenched neighborhood was named Bistella, a place Adele had longed to visit but lacked the courage. Now, she could comfortably enter this place. Previously, she only dared to watch from afar, and now she was accompanied by the head of the Buonaparte family. Cesare sensed her gaze. "It seems you're happy, but you're not smiling, are you?" Adele froze and looked at him in confusion. What did he mean? Cesare squinted playfully. "I can tell you're happy. It shows right on your face." Adele turned her gaze away, feeling exposed. "It's because this is my first time here. You'll get used to it soon enough." Cesare laughed. "Why do you hide the things you like? Just smile freely. It doesn't cost anything. You have such a beautiful face, so you should smile more. Or perhaps you don't like being escorted by this prodigal son." Adele stiffened at his words. "I don't dislike it." Still skeptical, Cesare asked, "So you're not interested in doing anything with me?" Adele was startled. Why has he been acting like this these past few days? I'm his sister, his sister. She forced a fake smile and replied, not at all. I quite enjoy this. Cesare changed his tone. Your life must be tough, huh? Adele looked straight at him, cursing silently. This bastard. Is he the type who gets excited by teasing a girl who doesn't like him? The carriage continued through the beautiful street and then stopped. It seemed they had arrived. Suddenly, Adele accidentally touched his hand resting on the door handle. Both were stunned by the situation, but Cesare seemed more amused. Adele awkwardly explained, Are you alright? I just wanted to help you open the door because the doctor said it would be better if you didn't move too much to avoid aggravating your injury. I didn't mean anything else. Cesare replied nonchalantly, When I read the notebook Lady Ava wrote, it seemed you had flatly refused. That really hurt my pride. Throughout the Stella neighborhood, someone shouted, The blue star is here. Immediately, everyone hurried back to their positions. Quick, dust off the display cabinets. The stores must look perfect. Everyone was bustling, unsure if Lord Cesare would visit their shop, making them very anxious. After a while, the door of one store opened. The hands of two people were entwined, and their presence was both magnificent and glamorous. Please, come in. This is the Bottega Divio store, Cesare cheerfully greeted back. May the goddess bless you. I'm here to choose suitable jewelry for my sister, but these items seem rather ordinary. Could you bring out something worthy of the Buonaparty family? Moments later, a 15-carat diamond ring was brought out, followed by an exquisite 9-carat ruby necklace from Mogok and a 10-carat emerald pendant. The salesperson warmly invited them to view these items. These are all meticulously selected pieces from Bottega Divio. Her name was Lisa Zanotti, the owner of the Bottega Divio store. Outwardly, she was welcoming, but inside, she was confident that her items were the finest and would certainly not be refused. Adele pondered for a while and picked up one of the items to admire it. But this action left Lisa extremely confused. Was she hinting that they should bring out something even more impressive? Seeing this, Cesare spoke up. What should we do? It seems these items are still not attractive enough for her. Lisa started sweating profusely as he continued. In fact, my sister's jewelry box has many items more valuable than these. Adele interjected. No, brother, it's just that these items are so beautiful that I can't decide which one to choose. Cesare laughed heartily. Really? Then let's buy them all. Lisa's face lit up with joy upon hearing this. I really like the items Lisa has shown us. Please show us more pieces suitable for my sister. Lisa's eyes twinkled with delight at landing such a valuable customer. She couldn't miss this opportunity but suddenly became suspicious. Since when did Lord Cesare have a sister? What on earth was happening? She wasn't sure if this girl was truly his sister, but one thing was certain. She was a noble. The aristocratic aura emanating from her and the way she reacted to the jewelry were unlike other ladies. Lisa started to worry about what she should show her next. Suddenly, she noticed something and spoke up. This item may not seem as valuable as the others, but I think these pearls would suit the lady well. Cesare, with his keen eye, also noticed. Adele, what do you think? Adele elegantly tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and said that she had never pierced her ears. Lisa, realizing her mistake, felt very apologetic. Cesare laughed. It seems my mother has raised her daughter quite conservatively. At least try it on and see how it looks. Adele gracefully tucked her hair behind her ear. Does it suit me? Cesare affirmed. It suits you very well. Lisa, seeing her aristocratic demeanor, widened her eyes in admiration, as if she was surrounded by a mystical halo. Suddenly, Cesare spoke. We'll take this one too. Lisa, startled, quickly replied, yes, of course. I'll wrap them up right away. He turned to Adele and pondered. But it seems my sister hasn't found anything she truly likes yet. Adele hesitated. There's one thing I like. It's the brooch. The brooch? Cesare responded. Really? It's so plain. Lisa also examined the brooch and agreed. It does match your Grace's elegant appearance. But in terms of design, it's rather simple. Adele held the brooch in her hand and smiled. But it's the same color as your eyes, brother. I really like it. Her gentle smile made Lisa blush, and even the man standing nearby was taken aback by the scene. Lisa widened her eyes at Adele and stole a glance at Cesare. They seemed like they had been apart for a lifetime, and they didn't look like they shared the same bloodline. If it were me, I wouldn't leave that girl alone, she thought. Cesare smirked slightly. I've heard that all women are truly terrifying. Lisa, find a stone that matches this one. The shop owner eagerly agreed. Yes, of course. Well then, let's move on to another store, Cesare said. The two continued shopping until the moon was high in the sky. Cesare asked, "You don't like gemstones?" Adele replied, "There isn't a woman who doesn't like them. But why do you seem indifferent to these things?" Adele responded lightly, "I can't take them with me when I leave, can I?" Hearing this, Cesare paused, then smiled softly and thought, "That's true." In harsher terms, the items we bought today are not for a Shoeshine girl but are the cost to promote the Duke's sister. There's no reason for me to expect a kiss on the cheek after giving her these jewels, unlike other noble ladies. Suddenly, Adele exclaimed, "Ah!" Cesare immediately noticed and knocked on the carriage to signal the driver to stop. The carriage came to a halt quickly. "What's the matter?" Cesare asked. "It's nothing," Adele replied. "I just saw a store." Cesare turned back. "That is the Secretum store. I've seen it from afar before." Cesare smirked. "That place is just a cheap store. The things you bought today are worth 3 times more than the items in that store." Adele felt like she was being turned back into a Shoeshine girl. She could only look at the store longingly and resign herself. "I understand. Thank you, brother." The next morning, Aponi was brushing Adele's hair while silently thanking the Duke for buying her those items. It was difficult for the maid to make her look any better with only the items available in the castle. After a while, Adele emerged with a refreshed appearance thanks to the things Cesare had bought her the previous day. Adele looked even more beautiful, but she still felt a bit shy because the dress exposed too much of her back. Now it was time to choose shoes. Aponi remarked, "I think these yellow ones will suit you well." Just then, Iger stepped forward and said, "Allow me to help you put on the shoes, my lady." He quickly knelt down and put the shoes on her. Adele hesitated for a moment. The shoes were soft and comfortable, entirely different from the ones Lady Flavia had given her. Suddenly, Iger looked up at her, making Adele startle slightly. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Iger replied, "No, my lady. Starting today, you will continue your lessons in the aria room, and I will escort you there." Adele nodded gently. "By the way, who will be my new teacher in the aria room?" Cesare was already waiting for her there. Adele greeted him with a hint of suspicion. "As you can see, for the next few days, I will be the one teaching you how to dance." Adele accepted reluctantly. "I am honored." Cesare laughed. "Don't act so displeased. Come here." Adele took his hand, and they entered the practice room. "Are you sure you're okay teaching me how to dance?" she asked. Cesare replied, "I thought you didn't care about me. It seems you're still worried about my injury." "I'm just concerned that you might get hurt because of me," Adele said. Cesare said casually, "I already stepped on your foot, didn't I?" They both fell silent. Adele sarcastically remarked, "Has no one ever taught you about compassion?" Cesare arrogantly responded, "There is no such thing as compassion between a man and a woman. Don't be so naive." The Buonaparte family always sat in the front row of the hall, farthest from the entrance, where the air circulation was best, and the orchestra played. Cesare reached for the gramophone and turned it on. Music immediately filled the room. Cesare bowed and said, "May I have the honor of a dance with you, my lady?" Adele took his hand and he pretended to kiss the back of her hand, reminding her. He gently held her hand and guided her. Adele frowned as his hand touched her bare back. Seeing this, Cesare smiled with amusement. "You know that the waltz position isn't just this, right?" Adele moved with him to the rhythm of the bass. "This is terrible. I think I'm about to fall," she thought, but before she could react, she stumbled backward. Cesare quickly caught her and teased, "Just kidding." Annoyed, Adele snapped, "Stop talking nonsense." Cesare, clearly enjoying himself, replied, "Do you know the essence of the waltz? It's that the man must be gentlemanly, and the woman must be beautiful. I will lead you, so just follow my steps." They continued dancing to the soft music and sweet melody. Adele followed Cesare's lead without missing a step, earning his praise. "Well done." Cesare kept guiding her through each step, their movements filling the room. "Why does he always look at others with such a longing gaze?" Adele wondered. After a while of dancing, she was breathless, sweat beading on her face and dripping onto the floor. How can he be so insincere? It's such a disgrace to the sea goddess, she thought bitterly. Despite Adele's exhaustion, Cesare continued the lesson, unfazed. He casually remarked. Adele, breathless, murmured, "I think you're right." Cesare paused, then amused, teased further, "If you reject the name Lucrezia della Vale, it would cause a huge problem. Blushing, Adele replied, "Don't worry. That won't happen." Cesare smiled slyly. "Don't be so sure. We can't predict the future." Adele responded firmly, "No, brother, it absolutely won't happen. So, rest assured." Cesare frowned at her for a moment before casually extending his hand and suggesting they continue practicing. Adele silently complied. Suddenly, the door to the room opened, and Lady Ava, along with Lady Lucrezia Della Vale, slowly entered. Epone was quite surprised by their presence. "The chairwoman invited me to meet Lord Cesare and Lady Adele," Ava said. Cesare was clearly displeased. He embraced Adele and continued dancing, saying, "Just keep dancing and ignore them. I need you to focus only on me." As they danced, Adele had to endure Lucrezia's criticisms. Why is she so clumsy? Didn't the place she came from hold any balls? Hasn't she heard what the lady of the house said? If she continues like this, she won't be able to fit into high society. The lady is right. Many people will attend the Buonaparty ball. She'll be under a lot of pressure. This won't be easy unless she was born with natural talent. I hope Lady Adele isn't too upset." Just as Lucrezia finished, Adele slipped and fell, but Cesare quickly caught her, supporting her entire body with his strong arms. "Come with me," he said. He turned to Lady Ava with a warm smile. "Lady Ava, I didn't expect you to visit without notice. And Lady Della Vale, how have you been lately?" Lucrezia immediately forgot her words, stammering, "I am well, thank you. You can call me by my first name to be more familiar." Cesare, uninterested, replied, "I'll think about it." "So, what brings you to here?" Ava wrote on a piece of paper, "I am looking for a lady who can help Adele debut in high society. Lady Lucrezia is very willing to help. It would be wonderful for the two ladies to talk to each other." Cesare sighed. "You still don't realize that your grandson prefers physical activities over conversations, do you? Then marry." Cesare was speechless. Marry? No way. Adele found Cesare's bluntness towards his grandmother quite rude. Ava continued, "Speaking of dancing, Lady Lucrezia, you dance wonderfully, don't you? Why don't you and Cesare dance together? Adele can learn by observing." Given the opportunity, Lucrezia was thrilled. "You are too kind, Lady Ava. I am very happy to do this for Lady Adele." She turned to Adele with a changed tone. "I am so happy to help you." Seeing Lucrezia's expression, Adele couldn't help but shudder. Memories of the fake smile hiding behind her face flooded back. "I will protect you from the murderers." The echo of a fall from a great height still haunted her mind. Adele breathed heavily, feeling a sense of dread as she saw that sinister smile reappear on Lucrezia's lips. Adele's golden eyes couldn't hide her fear and confusion. Suddenly, Cesare stepped in and blocked her view. "If it's Lady Ava's request, of course, I will comply," he said, extending his hand and inviting Lucrezia to dance with a cold demeanor. The two then moved away. Adele bowed her head and let out a sigh of relief. Ava spoke to her. "Are you really not involved with Cesare?" Adele replied, "I told you, we are just siblings." Ava became pensive. "Then why does Cesare care so much about you?" Adele turned away, not saying a word, and watched the two dance. She coldly remarked, "After all, I am Cesare's sister." Applause echoed in the room after their dance. Ava praised Lucrezia and teased, "When will you choose a date to walk down the aisle?" After a while, she excused herself and asked Cesare to keep an eye on her young guest. Cesare frowned in disagreement, but she ignored him and left the three of them alone. The room suddenly became quiet. Cesare nonchalantly lit a cigar and asked, "Are you having fun, Lady Della Vale? It seems you've been visiting quite often these days." Lucrezia stammered, I can't sit still." She glanced at Adele and continued, "I'm very worried about you." Cesare coldly responded, "There's no need for you to worry, so stop coming here." Lucrezia, still trying to hold on, said, "Do you want me to pretend not to know that you're going down a destructive path?" Cesare snapped, "Is it wrong for me to want the freedom to meet other women?" Trembling and grasping her dress, Lucrezia stammered, "I can't stand by and watch you fall further into that abyss. That's why I came here, so boldly. Why can't you understand that I love you so much? I love you, Cesare. I will always love you." After a moment of sobbing, she continued hesitantly, "It doesn't matter if you don't recognize it now. I can wait as long as it takes for you to walk the right path." I will keep waiting for you. The only person who truly loves you is me. Cesare took a drag from his cigar, exhaling the smoke into her face before speaking with mocking scorn. Stop saying those loving words when you're not getting anything in return. Choking on the smoke, Lucrezia coughed violently. This lesson is over. Go back to your room now, Cesare ordered Adele. Adele, wide-eyed, replied, yes, brother, and moved to leave. Lucrezia, still coughing, yelled out, but Madame Eva wants Lady Adele and me to become closer. You can't defy her orders. Cesare glared at her furiously, throwing his cigar to the ground and intimidating her with a terrifying demeanor. Suddenly, Adele spoke up, brother, if it's all right with you, I would also like to have dinner with Lady Lucrezia. There are some things I wish to discuss with her. In the dining room, the three of them shared a meal at a large table. Cesare looked bored, staring at the glass of red wine in his hand. Seeing this, Lucrezia spoke up. Does its flavor not suit you? You haven't touched your food either, Cesare replied. Watching Adele eat makes me feel full. Adele paused, startled by his words. Witnessing this, Lucrezia mumbled, I understand, but her eyes glowed with a chilling malice. Adele felt like she was the steak being pierced by Lucrezia's knife and fork. He turned to Cesare and said, brother, may I escort Lady Lucrezia after the meal? Just the two of us? Cesare hesitated, surprised by this unusual request from Adele. He responded flatly, do as you wish. Adele thanked him. Cesare placed his wine glass on the table and excused himself to leave. Lucrezia wanted to hold him back, but he coldly said, I hope we don't meet again. Goodbye. At the door, Cesare instructed Iger, protect Adele and keep your distance. He then turned to the two women. I'm heading upstairs. As he ascended the stairs, he received news that the supply of materials for the construction of Galilean ships was encountering difficulties, seemingly due to a direct order from the Empress of Chevi. Cesare remarked, that's suspicious. Anyway, arrange the schedule for the shipyard. Find a merchant who can't get a trade permit. The servant responded, understood. Cesare glanced back, seeing the two women heading towards the main gate. Lucrezia, trying to appear polite, expressed her desire to visit again, saying, I would love to come here again. Adele replied, I'm glad to hear that, but it would be better to ask my brother's permission before we meet. I enjoy meeting you, but my brother's wishes come first. Lucrezia tried to justify herself. This meeting was approved by Madame Eva. Adele responded bluntly, Madame Eva will also respect the wishes of the head of the Buonaparte family. The debate between the ladies continued, while Cesare casually smoked his cigar, enjoying the spectacle. Of course, but instead of fostering our friendship, it seems you're more focused on your relationship with my brother, Adele remarked. Lucrezia feigned sincerity. Why? I just want to be friends with you. But everything is still awkward, so I wanted Lord Cesare's help. Adele, seeing her expressions, was speechless. Lady Lucrezia, you said you love my brother, right? Wouldn't it be better if you tried to win his heart instead of being wary of me? Cesare and Iger, hearing this, were thrilled. What do you mean by that? As I said, even if I disappeared, it wouldn't bring you to any closer, Adele added, making Iger stifle his laughter, and Cesare, excited, muttered, I doubt Lucrezia has ever heard such straightforward words in her life. Down below, Lucrezia was losing control. Do you think I'm a fool? Adele calmly responded. Why would you think that? Lucrezia yelled, you make me laugh. Just because Lord Cesare doesn't love you, you insult the other women around him? Cesare remarked, Lucrezia has a point, doesn't she? Iger tried to contain his laughter. Your Grace, I can hear you. Adele maintained her composure. What I mean is, regardless of what you think of me or how you act, if my brother wants me here, then I have to comply. So, showing your claws to me is pointless. Lucrezia shouted even louder. Wait, how dare you say I'm showing my claws? How dare you accuse me of that? Adele became serious. Honestly, I don't want to interfere in the private matters between the two of you. I don't know what you're thinking, but my brother and I have a purely sibling relationship. Hearing this, Cesare was stunned. The room, previously filled with Lucrezia's shouting, fell silent. She coldly remarked, you two seem to get along very well. Adele replied, my brother only paid a bit more attention to me because I nearly caused a small incident. Otherwise, he wouldn't have cared about what I did. I'm just a sister who suddenly appeared one day, and soon, I'll get married. Cesare is a good man. I hope the two of you can get along. Cesare quietly took a drag from his cigar, the ashes falling and being swept away by the wind. Who my dear brother associates with is none of my concern, he said. He sat there silently until the sun set, his cigar burning shorter and shorter. Memories of Adele lingered vividly in his mind. Cesare frowned, unable to shake them off. Why do I feel so uneasy? He thought. In the carriage, Lucrezia questioned her maid about earlier when Adele suggested she and Cesare get together. Now that I think about it, her gaze was strange. It was as if she didn't love the Duke at all. How could that be? Just standing in front of him makes me tremble all over. No matter how bad her taste in men is or how little she understands the situation, what do you think if we reveal Lady Adele's true identity to the nobles? The maid replied, if we do that, the Duke will truly push us away. For now, I just want Cesare to pay a little attention to me. Moving toward his heart step by step is fine. If Lady Adele really supports our relationship, then we should meet Cesare more often. Suddenly, the maid snapped Lucrezia out of her delusion. But my lady, if that plan succeeds, won't young Master Ezra and Lady Adelaide end up getting married? She's not even a true noble. How can we let someone like that marry the master? Lucrezia realized the implications but immediately brightened up, responding, that's my brother's concern. The maid was stunned, but Lady Adele also appears quite like a noblewoman. There shouldn't be any issue. What's more important is whether I can continue being by Lord Cesare's side without that contract. If he has decided to proceed that way, I'll have to find another way. She then ordered the maid to keep Adele's secret, adding, but if anyone does find out, I couldn't care less. In another room, Cesare was writing a letter to his pretend sister. As per the doctor's advice, I can no longer be your dance instructor. Whether nature or art creates traps to control the human heart, they cannot compare to the joy I feel when seeing your radiant smile. Cesare Buonaparte. After reading the letter, Adele asked Aponi to prepare pen and paper so she could reply. Confident from having read Danny's poetry, she dipped the pen in ink and wrote back, Dear brother Cesare, the time spent with you has truly been delightful, like soaring among the stars. But I understand that if I continue to immerse myself in that joy, it would go against the purpose you brought me here for. My brother, who has cared for and loved me immensely, is a person full of compassion, kindness, and greatness. All the good qualities of humanity are present in you. Adelaide Buonaparte. So episode 3 of the High Society series ends here. Will Adele successfully introduce herself to the aristocracy? And how will their relationship progress? Let's look forward to episode 4 of this Manhwa series. Adele had finished writing her letter. Aponi was surprised. Did you think of your reply so quickly? Adele responded, Is there a problem? No, actually, it's better this way. I think we won't need any more consultations in the future. Aponi replied. Adele suddenly remembered, if my brother is no longer helping me with dance practice, will there be a new instructor? Just then, Iger stepped in and said, starting today, I will be your instructor. This is not my usual role, but it will have to do for now. Adele was still surprised that Iger would be the one teaching her. He seemed like the last person who could be considered a skilled dancer. Nonetheless, she had to rely on Iger. I will serve you to the best of my abilities, he said. Since Cesare wanted her to master the waltz, they continued practicing the dance. The melodious music from the phonograph filled the room as Iger led her through the steps. Suddenly, Adele misstepped, but Iger quickly adjusted their position to help her regain her footing. His movements were a bit stiff, but he was a suitable partner because he didn't make her heart race like Cesare did, and he didn't have that predatory look either. Adele hesitated for a moment, recalling that the first time she met Iger, she smelled the metallic scent of blood on him. It was a sinister smell only those familiar with Kimurah would recognize. This man must have done many dirty jobs for Cesare. Thinking of Lady Flavia, she guessed that Iger had a hand in her sudden disappearance. Perhaps, if she wasn't careful, she could also become a victim under the sword at his side. Adele glanced up at Iger and thought to herself, I've tried to escape from hell, but it seems this place is no different. Suddenly, she spoke up, Are you skilled with a sword? Iger hesitated at the question, then replied, As a bracker, I cannot answer such questions. Can't you just say yes to make a lady feel more confident in the bracker? Adele pressed. After a moment of hesitation, Iger said, I am quite skilled with a sword. Adele responded coolly, That's good. It means you can grant me a painless death. That evening, Adele expressed her desire to go outside the mansion and include those outings in her schedule. The nobles, including my brother, often go there. I think observing them could help me become a more refined lady. I will go there discreetly and take Iger with me. Epony, somewhat skeptical since Adele had never made such a request before, said she would ask Lord Cesare for permission. With that, she left the room. Once the door closed, Adele was lost in her thoughts. Lucrezia is persistent. She won't be satisfied if I simply say I support her relationship with Cesare. I need to observe Cesare and provide her with the smallest details. Even if this plan gets discovered, Cesare will forgive me. He's that kind of person. After a while, Epony returned and announced, "The young master has granted permission. However," he said, "you must not neglect your dance lessons. The new instructor will arrive soon, so please prepare yourself." Adele replied, "All right." The next day, Iger escorted her to a hill from where they could see the entire Buonaparty estate and observe Cesare. "The Duke is going out," Iger noted. Below, Cesare was smoking a cigar as his guests gradually approached the front hall. Adele's eyes widened as she saw the guests. Mayor Lucy Gazzo, Lord Libby Rossi, the current head of the Rossi family, and Lord Zanini, the former chairman of Signoria. All were significant figures in Saint-Na. To Adele's astonishment, all these prominent people respectfully bowed to Cesare, and he merely nodded in acknowledgement. His cloak fluttered in the wind as the group followed him into the mansion, leaving Adele dumbfounded. So that is Cesare's stature. Being close to him, I almost forgot that I am supposed to be the sister of such a person, she murmured. Iger, having observed her expressions, reassured her, "It's not distant at all. This place is now your home." Feeling enlightened, Adele replied, "Then if I do well." She reached out her finger, letting a ladybug land on it before watching it take flight into the sky. "I think I should continue with my dance lessons." Iger nodded. Indeed. A new day began as usual, and Kasari had to handle the daily tasks. Suddenly, his assistant reminded him, "My lord, the young lady's at 10 o'clock. Only then did he notice that corner, seeing Adele along with her aide hiding in the distance, observing him. Cesare thought to himself, "What is she doing? I heard she wanted to leave the outer palace, but I didn't hear anything about her scurrying around me." The assistant pulled Cesare out of his thoughts. "What would you like to do?" Cesare casually replied, "It doesn't matter." He knew full well that this had something to do with Adele's previous agreement with Lucrezia. Maybe she's planning to observe my routine and report it or something like that. A few days later, as usual, Kasari started a new day, scanning around for Adele. Behind the hill, Adele and the guard were hiding in the shadows. Adele seemed rather disheveled from hiding behind the bushes, with leaves still tangled in her hair. After spotting Adele, Kasari thought to himself, "She's here today too, so persistent." With that, Cesare quietly turned his head away, recalling what Adele had said the other day. "Honestly, I'd rather not get involved between you two." Cesare felt an uncomfortable frustration, not understanding why she disliked him so much. "Even though this is the situation I wanted, being openly rejected still hurts my pride. I've never been turned down before. A shoeshiner with such high standards, and saying that Lucrezia and I are a good match." Lost in his thoughts, Cesare didn't realize that Gira had been calling his name for the 10th time, "My lord," until Gira had to shout, "My lord," to regain Cesare's attention. However, Cesare, seemingly unbothered, casually remarked, "Did something happen to her eyes?" Dozens of people were waiting behind Kasari, but he remained absorbed in a flood of his own questions until Cesare's trusted assistant spoke up. "Why are you doing that? The guests are about to leave, and they're all waiting behind you." Unconcerned, he turned and walked away, leaving behind a single instruction. Then, "If Adelaide asks about my schedule, don't tell her. Instead, encourage her to see me in person." Gigi didn't quite understand what was happening but still replied, "Yes, understood." That night, Cesare lay awake, pondering over the matter, reflecting on Adele's schedule through Epony's report. The young lady has been studying very diligently lately. In fact, she studies even more in the evenings than during the day when she visits her teacher. The aide also reported, "When the lady enters the restricted area, she practices dancing with me. She has become quite good at waltzing." Thinking about it, Cesare wondered, she has become good at waltzing? He recalled the last time they danced together, a moment they both genuinely enjoyed. Cesare couldn't believe that Adele didn't find any pleasure or affection in being around him. Maybe the deal with Lucrezia was just a ruse. Thinking this, Kasari found himself wondering just how much Adele had improved. The next morning in the study, Cesare was reviewing documents and listening to Gigi's report. Suddenly, he fell silent for a long time. Noticing this, Gigi spoke up. The young lady really asked about your schedule. This statement certainly caught Cesare's attention. Gigi continued, I didn't provide the information as instructed and suggested she ask you directly. Cesare seemed quite pleased. A response will come soon. Since she said she disliked me so strongly, maybe she won't reach out first. As he drummed his fingers on the desk, the Duke thought, should I just ask her to have lunch together? Just as he was considering this, Adele opened the door and entered. Gigi's expression instantly changed, his eyes sparkling with excitement at the sight of Adele. Young lady, he repeatedly called out, rushing eagerly towards Adele, but before he could reach her, a hand grabbed him back. Cesare greeted Adele with a look that was half a smile, half a smirk. Greetings from the goddess. Papers flew everywhere. Cesare then asked, to what do I owe your visit? Noticing Adele looking slightly uneasy, Cesare couldn't quite understand what was going on. Avoiding the Duke's gaze, Adele finally spoke. I wanted to ask if you have time tomorrow. Sometimes I want to share everyday moments with you as your sister. Adele, as if doing something suspicious, darted her eyes around and only dared to look at the floor while making her proposal. Upon hearing this, Cesare seemed displeased. The atmosphere suddenly became tense, as Cesare knew full well that Adele was lying. The Duke let out a sarcastic chuckle and responded, everyday moments? Adele hurriedly added, visiting places where many nobles can be seen. It would help me learn the etiquette of a lady, too. Noticing the hesitation in her voice, Cesare guessed that she was doing this to connect him with Lucrezia. Thinking this, the Duke made a proposal. There's one decent place. Adele, sweating, replied, if it's too much and I'm being unreasonable. The Duke immediately interrupted. Tonight, at midnight. Adele, confused, asked, at midnight? She wondered if Lucrezia could make it in time if she informed her about tonight's location. Thinking of this, she quickly asked the Duke, where are we going? Hearing her question, the Duke crossed his arms, a mysterious look on his face. It won't be fun if I tell you in advance. At exactly midnight, the Duke stood waiting for Adele at the castle gates. Gigi nervously asked, are you really going to take the young lady there? Cesare, while adjusting his attire, casually replied, if you wanted to stop me, you should have done it earlier. Gigi, helpless, said, what was I supposed to do when you're so angry every time? Even though she's from Kimurah, she seems naive on some days, probably because she's lived her life that way. At that moment, Adele appeared from behind, calling brother, dressed in a mysterious black outfit that accentuated her porcelain white skin. Adele still felt anxious about where the Duke was about to take her. The Duke's face darkened as he responded, a nice place. Let's get going, he said as he turned away. Suddenly, Adele felt her whole body trembling. She nervously asked, are you perhaps going to sell me? Hearing this, Cesare was slightly surprised. He laughed and turned back, responding, you really do seem like you're from Kimurah. Adele was taken aback by the Duke's reply. She fell silent, her eyes filled with unease. Seeing this, the Duke seemed quite pleased, thinking to himself, so she can get hurt just like any other human. With this thought, the ruthless man continued, does it really matter if I say I'm selling you off right now? It doesn't seem much different from being sold to Ezra. Adele, shocked, didn't know how to respond. She quickly looked up at the Duke, her hands crossed in front of her chest, showing her anxiety and worry. Cesare appeared very satisfied with her reaction. Suddenly, he stepped closer and spoke loudly. Unfortunately, today we're just going to the dark side of high society. Also, I'll take the opportunity to see how much of a lady my sister can be. With a dangerous smile and holding a strange mask in his hand, he handed the mask to her. Inside the mask, a ruby gemstone was embedded. Before Adele could say anything, Cesare swiftly pressed the mask onto her face, leaving her no time to react. With his domineering gaze, the Duke said, bite tightly so it doesn't fall off. The carriage traveled through the night towards Delicia Street, where there was a place called the Galatot Club. This was a nighttime gathering spot for the upper class. When they arrived, Adele was still curious, not knowing why Cesare had brought her here. Everyone wore masks and had to present an invitation to be allowed in. Adele silently guessed, is it like a membership club? A man wearing a bird-beak-shaped mask and dressed in black respectfully greeted the next guest. It's been a while since your last time here, the Duke replied. I've been busy. The man placed a hand on his chest, you're the owner of the club, so please visit more often. By the way, as he spoke, he shot a sharp glance at Adele and asked, your companion is wearing a Moretta mask, I see? I guess it's going to be a long night. He then opened the door for the two to enter. Enjoy your time. Behind the door was a staircase leading down to the basement of the castle, dark and full of mystery. As they descended, Adele was stunned by the scene before her. Bright, dazzling stage lights illuminated couples entwined with each other, completely unrestrained. It was a scene of debauchery, something she had never witnessed before in her life. As soon as they saw Adele, all eyes turned towards her. Someone exclaimed, Moretta, Moretta is here. Filled with fear, Adele couldn't understand what was happening. She wondered what the meaning of Moretta was that everyone kept mentioning. Suddenly, a green spotlight shone directly on Adele, making her the center of attention. She didn't know what was going on. Then, a waiter carrying a bottle of wine from behind spoke up. You gave up your power. Adele, panicked and confused, glanced behind her. Gave up power? Seeing her reaction, the waiter immediately realized she didn't understand the significance of the Moretta mask. With a hint of mockery, he explained, it means you won't say anything no matter what happens to you. Or it could also mean that you want something to happen to you. How terrifying. As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of hands reached out toward her, grabbing her, pulling her in every direction, as if everyone wanted Adele to belong to them. In her panic, Adele truly didn't know what to do next. The girl couldn't react in time as the many hands surrounded her. Around her were hundreds of ravenous eyes, burning with desire, all lusting after her. Suddenly, someone forcefully grabbed Adele's hand. This chaotic scene was all within Cesare's view. Gigi asked, do you want me to stop them? The Duke's eyes remained fixed on her, observing her every move. After a long silence, he responded, let them continue. Now, as the center of attention, the poor, small girl bore the brunt of everything happening to her. Just then, a hand tried to grab Adele's shoulder but ended up pushing her down to the floor. Around her, the savage laughter of the nobles echoed. Adele's voluptuous figure attracted the gazes of many filthy men, and behind their masks, Adele seemed to show no emotion. She quietly stared at the crowd around her. Seeing Adele fall, Cesare was surprised, but he was even more shocked by her reaction to the situation. Gritting his teeth, he muttered, it's driving me crazy, holding a glass of wine in his hand. Did he truly find this situation enjoyable? Glancing to the side, he noticed the man in the bird beak mask staring hungrily at Adele. Fueled by anger, Cesare immediately hurled his wine glass at the man and growled, get lost before I cut you. The frightened man apologized. Cesare turned his gaze back to Adele, noticing that her shawl had been taken from her at some point, leaving only her tears behind. Furious, Cesare gripped the railing tightly. Just admit it. All men are the same, and the reason your eyes are set up here is because you don't understand reality. Whether you cry, run away, or cling to me. In the hall, Adele still sat there, silent, resigned, her entire body trembling. She was truly in a state of panic. Seeing this, Cesare grew even more enraged, thinking, even though you're trembling like that, why are you just standing still? You could at least fight back, just like when you came at me, trying to cut my throat. As he thought of this, Cesare suddenly remembered his earlier words. Also, I'll take the opportunity to see how much of a lady my sister can be. This only made him angrier, so unnecessarily stubborn. Feeling that it had gone on long enough, the Duke spoke up. The lady says she's leaving. Let's wrap it up. At this, everyone stepped back, leaving Adele alone there. As the Duke walked down the stairs, he casually remarked, you seemed curious about high society, so I showed you. Did you find it interesting? He looked at her as he said this. Adele was shocked by the Duke's words. She didn't understand what he meant. Tears kept streaming down her face, yet her eyes were filled with resentment, disappointment, and despair as she looked at Cesare. Seeing this, Cesare was very surprised. He truly didn't understand why. She's the woman who didn't cry even when she almost fell to her death from the rooftop. When she was attacked, she held up a pair of scissors at them. Adele was still shaken by the scene she had just witnessed, crying uncontrollably as if all her pent-up emotions were pouring out. Suddenly, the Duke spoke again. Is this something worth crying about? Hearing this, Adele truly didn't know what to say to this man. Then she abruptly ran outside, with Gigi chasing after her, calling back to Cesare, I'll take you home. The Duke stood there alone, his face filled with contemplation and discomfort. Why do I feel so awful now? In a narrow alley, Adele cried out loud, thinking he already knew. He knew that I was following him, and even the reason why. He warned me that if I overstepped my boundaries, he would send me to hell with just one finger. She recalled the scene from earlier when those filthy hands touched her, and at that moment, many thoughts raced through Adele's mind. Should I grab that bottle, swing it, and smash it? Or should I resist until the end? While I'm at it, I might as well show him how ladylike this little sister can be too. No, I have to be ladylike. If I act like a lady, as Cesare's sister, someone will rescue me. And that was why Adele simply sat there and endured everything. Back in the present, Adele cried and silently blamed herself. I foolishly mistook myself for truly being Cesare's sister, but he didn't have to go this far. If he had just given me a hint, I would have quickly gone back to being a humble shoeshiner. Suddenly, Gigi arrived, feeling genuinely terrible at having to witness this. Looking at the pitiful girl in front of him, Gigi handed her a cloak and said, "He had me on standby nearby. There wouldn't have been anything as dangerous as you thought." Hearing this, Adele let out a bitter laugh, thinking, he is so omnipotent that a mere shoeshiner cannot fathom his intentions, nor should I even try. The more she thought about it, the more she cried. Wiping her tears with her hand, Gigi offered her a handkerchief. Adele used it to wipe away her streaming tears, also wiping away the humiliation she had endured to move forward. She suddenly asked, "Do I need to wash it and return it?" Gigi replied, "No," seemingly waiting for just that. She tossed the handkerchief aside as if she wanted to bury all these events deep within her heart. They walked towards the Duke, who was standing nearby. Adele, with her red, swollen eyes, apologized to Cesare while he stood there smoking a cigar. "I apologize. I showed you a side of myself that was less than ladylike." Ignoring her apology, Cesare responded, "Are you disappointed that you couldn't call Lucrezia? You wanted to arrange a natural meeting?" Adele was shocked that he knew her intentions. After a moment of silence, Adele spoke up, "If you decide to punish me, I will humbly accept it." As he puffed on his cigar, Cesare observed Adele's tear-streaked red eyes with a pensive expression. The more he looked, the more irritated he seemed to become. It was as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he turned away and walked towards the carriage, leaving Adele standing there. On a bright, sunny afternoon, a little boy ran, crying and shouting, chasing after the carriage ahead, but he couldn't catch up. He cried in helpless frustration. Then his grandmother approached and gently called out, "Cesare, everyone deserves freedom." At that time, the young boy didn't fully understand what his grandmother meant. Cesare woke up from that dream, thinking, "I keep having these ridiculous dreams." A few days later, as usual, Gigi reported the daily schedule to Cesare. At 11 o'clock, there is a meeting with the head of the Arte family. "You'll be having lunch with Lady Adelaide." Cesare, seemingly wanting to avoid Adele, asked his assistant, "Wasn't the lunch supposed to be with Port Duquesne today?" Gigi replied, "You postponed the meal with the young lady last time. Should I cancel it? I heard the young lady cried a lot yesterday." The Duke, still perplexed, questioned, "What's so important about a shoeshiner crying?" After a moment of silence, Gigi finally responded, "Is that so?" The Duke, curious, asked, "What are you trying to say?" Gigi smiled and answered, "Just, since she's from Kimurah, I feel sorry for her. You can't even imagine what that place is like, my lord. People there have no family, no mother. You can't imagine how miserable their lives can become. People endure all kinds of horrible experiences there. Those who can't imagine the worst are the first to die in Kimurah." Hearing this, the Duke retorted, "This place isn't Kimurah." Gigi agreed, "Right, but it's more painful here for her. Why can't she escape from that place? Why can't she simply be happy in this bright world and live?" The Duke folded his arms, reflecting on Gigi's words. He thought to himself that Gigi wasn't the type to easily show sympathy for others. So, was what I did really so unforgivable? Cesare furrowed his brow, wondering, what kind of place is Kimurah? In the end, Cesare agreed to have lunch with Adele and even took the initiative to invite Lady Lucrezia to join them under Adelaide's name. Gigi was shocked to hear that the Duke had invited Lucrezia himself. "Are you serious?" Cesare awkwardly replied, "Just thinking about her makes me lose my appetite." As he fastened his buttons, Cesare thought, if Adelaide's reason for dealing with Lucrezia is just to survive here, then it's better if I intervene and help their relationship. After all, I need to ensure the shoeshiner's successful entry into high society, and if Lucrezia can be a friend to help with that, it will be much easier to secure her a place among the ladies. With this thought, Cesare let out a sigh, as if reluctantly accepting the situation. The servant's voice echoed, "How bothersome, Lady Lucrezia della Valle has arrived." At a long dining table, Lucrezia and Adele sat across from each other. As soon as Cesare appeared, Lady Lucrezia excitedly greeted him, though her voice faltered, "Lolo, Lord Cesare." Adele also turned and smiled, greeting, "Brother, did you sleep well?" Adele's eyes were red and swollen. It seemed Cesare only noticed that detail, thinking, "Did she cry all night?" Seeing this, Lucrezia quickly interjected, I was talking about the debut ceremony with Lady Adelaide. Why you went there yesterday? Why you might have been a bit surprised, but it's something that must be done before debuting in society." Adele responded, "I see," then turned her gaze to Cesare. "Thanks to my brother, I was able to complete the ceremony safely. In hindsight, it feels like a good experience." As Cesare sat down, he remarked, "But you were crying quite a lot." Adele raised her hand to her mouth, laughing softly, "Because I am still not used to it." "I'm really sorry about that." Cesare glanced at her upon hearing this response. There was a moment of silence. The one to break the silence was Lucrezia. "Lady Adelaide, I can help with those things." The Duke agreed with Lucrezia's suggestion. "Let's make sure to have meetings at the mansion until Adelaide's debut." Adele smiled warmly, thanking Lady Lucrezia. "I'd appreciate all the guidance you can give." Lady Lucrezia was visibly delighted to hear these words from Cesare. Isn't that what friends are for? Gathering together and sharing conversations. That's a great joy for me. Lady Adelaide, I think we can become wonderful friends. Adele smiled politely and agreed. The atmosphere between the two women remained somewhat stiff, and Cesare simply observed, thinking, everything is going according to plan. Setting down her fork, Adele seemed to have barely touched the meat on her plate. This did not escape Cesare's notice. After dinner, the sun had set, and Adele and Cesare saw Lucrezia off. Lady Lucrezia thanked the Duke for the dinner. "Oh, Lord Cesare, I had such a wonderful time today. I enjoyed the meal and the walk too. Please don't worry about Lady Adelaide. She will surely become a beloved lady in high society." Cesare stood in silence for a moment, thinking, I need to make sure of this. Suddenly, the Duke leaned in close to Lady Lucrezia's ear, whispering something that left her visibly stunned. "Be careful on your way, Lady Lucrezia." Hearing this, her heart raced, and she became flustered, her words shaky and disjointed. "Yes, I will take good care of Lady Adelaide." "And about the upcoming birthday banquet for the Duke?" Cesare responded, "You must help her to attend that banquet." In her confusion, Lucrezia quickly agreed. "Yes, I will help her." Then, Lady Adelaide, Lord Cesare, see you soon. With that, the Duke and Adele watched as Lady Lucrezia's carriage disappeared into the distance. The two stood there in silence, creating an awkward atmosphere. Suddenly, they turned to look at each other. Adele spoke first. "Thank you for inviting Lady Lucrezia. I wanted to talk to her again sometime." For some reason, the more Cesare listened, the more he ground his teeth. He then stepped closer, much to Adele's surprise, and with a frown, he asked, "What is your problem?" Adele was genuinely confused by the Duke's question. Cesare pressed further, "I'm asking what your irritation is about." Adele, still smiling as if nothing was wrong, responded, "If you tell me what's bothering you, I'll do as you say." These words from Adele truly enraged him. Cesare's eyes widened as he angrily asked, "Are you a fucking idiot?" Despite the insult, Adele remained calm and indifferent. After a moment of silence, she replied, "If that's what you want, I'll act like an idiot." The Duke was taken aback by her response. He asked again, "Let me ask you again, Adelaide Bibi, was that something to cry about?" From his position, Cesare couldn't see Adele's face clearly. She remained silent, not answering his question. He believed that she should have been angry yesterday, rather than crying. What was the point of it all? It would have been better than this pathetic attempt at being a sister. Cesare stood facing Adele, his expression and mood clearly filled with frustration and discomfort. His hand curled into a fist. Finally, Adele lifted her head, grasped Cesare's arm, and said, "You're right, brother. I embarrassingly overreacted. Please forgive me this once." It seemed she had to suppress all her true emotions just to say those words. "If there's anything you dislike, I will fix it all." Surprised by Adele's action, the Duke let out a mocking laugh. Adele continued, I will do my best to meet your expectations from now on." In response, Cesare replied sarcastically, "I suppose my sister finds it easy." Yet, Adele kept smiling, assuring him that she would do anything he asked. Unable to respond further, Cesare turned his face away from her. Adele pressed on, "If you tell me to sleep, I'll sleep. If you tell me to eat, I'll eat. It's obvious." Hearing this, the Duke froze, stunned, as her words echoed in his mind, "I'll do everything you tell me to." His face darkened as he realized, "It's a clear matter I should have thought of before. Adelaide will be bound to Ezra because I want it." When I pushed her onto the bed, the shoeshiner who was ready to shove scissors at me, that same shoeshiner who cried just for being caught in the crowd but never leaned on me, she belongs to Ezra de la Vale. His thoughts finally aligned. The Duke responded, "That's right. You're disgusting." In a fit of anger, Cesare shoved Adele's hand away. These words hurt the small girl deeply, but she suppressed her feelings, still apologizing and promising to try harder. Back in her room, Adele stood there alone for who knows how long before she finally collapsed, as if she could no longer bear the weight of it all. Her ever-present aide looked genuinely worried for her, but Adele reassured him that she was fine. Reflecting on the Duke's harsh words, "You're disgusting," Adele had to bite her lip hard to stop herself from crying. She kept trying to calm herself, repeating in her mind, "There's nothing new about it. There's nothing new about it." After regaining her composure, she turned to her aide and smiled. "Shall we practice the waltz? There isn't enough time left for me to become a true lady." After that day, Adele trained obsessively. Whenever she had time, she practiced dancing tirelessly, day after day. The soft music echoed through the room constantly, without rest. Finally, the day of her debut into high society arrived. That evening, carriages lined up, racing toward Cesare's estate. Inside one of the carriages, two women spoke. "This procession doesn't seem to shorten," one of them remarked. The other replied, "It seems there are more visitors than at last year's birthday banquet." Meanwhile, the men were also chatting excitedly. After all, isn't this to celebrate Lady Adelaide's debut? Finally, the day has come for Adele to debut in high society. Will she have a successful debut? Will Cesare regret his decision? Don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the next episode. Party. The girls were greeting each other very joyfully. This blonde, curly-haired girl was a close friend of Lady Lucrezia, and she was truly furious for not knowing where her friend was. She suddenly didn't even let me get in the De la Vale carriage. Earlier, Lucrezia had sent an apology letter. "I'll have to go separately today. I'm sorry." She was really confused having to stand here alone like this. A servant announced, "Cesare Bonaparte is entering." All eyes were drawn in that direction. The Duke entered, adorned in a striking noble outfit with his distinctive green hair. Everyone respectfully bowed to Cesare. In one corner, two girls were whispering, "Lord Cesare always looks dashing." The other girl added, "Indeed. Especially, do you think he'll be going on another night adventure tonight?" Meanwhile, Cesare stepped up the stairs to the highest point of the party and began to speak. "Dear members of the assembly, bureaucrats, gentlemen, ladies, and older folks whose hobby is visiting places like this." Down below, people were murmuring and talking non-stop. Cesare continued, "Thank you for gracing us with your presence. I am Cesare Bonaparte. This is my birthday banquet, which is celebrated every year, unlike the previous heads of the Bonaparte family. Now, since you all seem bored with my long opening speech, let's get to the main point." Hearing this, everyone got excited. It was finally the part they had been waiting for. Cesare continued, "As you may have heard in passing, I have a younger sister. Today's grand banquet offers the perfect opportunity for her introduction." Then, the Duke turned around and extended his hand behind him. "Please be kind and greet my younger sister, who has come from afar." Adelaide slowly stepped out with black shoes adorned with yellow flowers, her distinct green hair, appearing like an elegant lady with a black dress that perfectly highlighted her role as the center of attention of today's party. Her presence overshadowed all the other girls attending. At this moment, in a distant corner, our blonde girl was still in a daze. Why wasn't I introduced to her earlier? Right now, Adelaide was sitting comfortably on the sofa, with all eyes on her, and to her left was Lady Lucrezia. Adelaide's noble beauty left everyone in awe. Suddenly, a man spoke up. "Did you say you're from Capallo?" Adelaide elegantly responded, "Yes. Do you know of it?" The man stepped closer, placing his hand over his chest and respectfully bowing to Adelaide. A distant relative of mine has a villa in Kapalo. If I had known that Lady Adelaide was there, I would have sought a meeting long ago." Hearing this, Adelaide calmly replied, "As you may know, until 3 months ago, I was nothing but a mere country girl. I was not someone a gentleman like you should waste precious time meeting." The man extended his hand, hiding such elegance and pretending to be a country girl. "There are some things in the world that can't be hidden, like a sharp needle in a pocket." In response, Adelaide placed her hand on the man's. "You're making me blush, sir. Are you teasing a debutante?" Kissing the back of Adelaide's hand and not forgetting to cast a probing glance at her, the man replied, "If I have spoken any falsehood, then may I be thrown into the fires of hell this very instant." Looking down from above, Adelaide seemed to have played the role of a noble lady very successfully and delivered her final blow. If such a noble gentleman were thrown into hell's flames, all the young ladies would surely mourn. Excited by her response, he invited Adelaide to dance with him. But at this very moment, the haughty lady withdrew her hand, turned her face away, leaving the 3 young men in utter surprise. From surprise, they were completely captivated by Adelaide's beauty and eloquence. Such beauty and noble grace. A truly remarkable lady has finally emerged in high society. If only she would dance with me just once. If only I could embrace her just once. Standing afar and observing, the blonde girl was truly admiring Adelaide's beauty. She's incredibly beautiful. I have to talk to her. With that thought, the girl tried to push her way forward to talk to Adelaide. But there were too many people, and she couldn't get through. At that moment, Lucrezia noticed her and called out, "Lady Genevieve? It is really Lady Genevieve." Saying this, Lucrezia stood up and introduced her to Adelaide. "Lady Adelaide, may I introduce you to my friend?" Hearing this, Genevieve felt overjoyed. "Good job, Lucrezia." Following her around and gathering information was totally worth it. Adelaide immediately agreed and looked over at the blonde girl. "May the goddess's blessing be with you. I am Adelaide Bonaparte. It's a pleasure to meet you," Genevieve excitedly replied. "May the goddess's blessing be with you. I am Genevieve Malatesta," Adelaide suggested. "If you don't mind, would you like to join our conversation?" Of course, our enthusiastic girl was more than ready to agree. Lucrezia pointed to the seat next to her. "Lady Genevieve, you can sit next to me." The blonde girl started contemplating. In high society, it's customary for the highest-ranking person's seat to be filled last. This means Lucrezia is acknowledging Adelaide as her superior. "I've aligned myself with the right person. How wonderful it would be if the 3 of us stayed together like this." Before she could finish celebrating, the voices of men behind her resounded. "Looks like a cuckoo has laid its egg in the nest we were aiming for." Genevieve froze upon hearing these words. They didn't stop there and continued, "Lady Adelaide, have you ever seen a cuckoo in real life? They look quite greedy." Too embarrassed by such words, the poor blonde girl didn't know how to react and could only stand there, taking the insults. At this moment, Adelaide spoke up. "Lady Genevieve, have you ever seen an eagle hunt?" Not understanding Adelaide's intention, the girl asked back, "Pardon?" Opening the fan in her hand, Adelaide gracefully continued, "Eagles are heavy birds. They aren't swift, nor do they fly very high. Though they always lose to hawks in the sky, they're still greedy, so they come down to the ground and flap their wings, trying to push other birds away." Not only Genevieve but also everyone else was stunned by Adelaide's words. But she didn't stop there. "But I do like canaries. Lady Genevieve's hair is a beautiful canary like orange." Hearing these words, Genevieve's affection for Adelaide increased tremendously. Adelaide then turned her sharp gaze to the 2 insolent men. "Looks like the 2 of you think differently from me. Would you kindly excuse yourselves?" The 2 men hastily explained, "Lady Adelaide, that was just a high society joke." However, Adelaide seemed unwilling to let them go easily. She closed her fan and responded in a stern voice, "Your jokes aren't funny, and I know very well you both think I'm a fool." Upon hearing Adelaide's words, the crowd began to buzz with excitement. Everyone believed that those men were truly insolent. To dare to regard Lady Bonaparte as a fool on a day like this, to behave in such an unrefined manner in front of a noble lady. Should we inform Lord Cesare? Hearing the commotion, the 2 men began to grit their teeth in fear. They quickly apologized and left. Adelaide looked gently at Genevieve and said, "Don't pay attention to the words of such pathetic people." Tears welled up in Genevieve's eyes as her heart overflowed with gratitude toward Adelaide. This kind of thing happened frequently when I was with Lucrezia, but she never stood up for me. Thinking so, she tearfully thanked Adelaide. A man spoke up. The seas around Santnar are mostly too deep for marine life, with only the northwestern region near Orquanina being an exception. You are very observant. Another reason is the lack of large bushes suitable for shipbuilding, so the locals often use bamboo to build boats, Adelaide continued. That's why maintaining good relations with Saruk is inevitable. Have you heard that Trivium Port Duquesne Trading Company has been in contact with Saruk? Genevieve couldn't understand what everyone was talking about. Meanwhile, everyone continued chatting animatedly with Adelaide, praising her astonishing knowledge, showering her with compliments and eager glances. In response to their compliments, Adelaide gently replied, I suppose you gentlemen think of me as Beatrice. At this moment, a man noticed the reference and quickly responded, At least it's true that my tongue is trembling and frozen, and I certainly cannot look up at her. Adelaide merely smiled and replied, But I am different from Beatrice. I can sit by a clear, cool, and sweet riverbank, or sit at the edge of a small boat ride with a gentleman. Hearing this, the young man's eyes shone even brighter at Adelaide's charm. Suddenly, the bespectacled young man kneeled down. You say you're not Beatrice, but to my eyes, I can only see you as a woman adorned with an olive wreath over a white veil. Wherever you go, even if it's not heaven but hell, I would follow you. Lady Adelaide. Before he could finish his sentence, Kisera appeared out of nowhere and called out, Adelaide. He showed up behind Adelaide, and she turned around to greet him. Oh, you've arrived, brother? With his tall and imposing figure, Kisera unintentionally put pressure on the young man kneeling there. Kisera asked what was going on. Adelaide smiled and replied, We were having a delightful conversation. He just said he'd follow me to hell if I asked. I was considering accepting the invitation. Hearing this, Kisera gave a mysterious smile. He leaned closer to Adelaide. So, has the king of hell made his appearance? Surprised by his question, she covered her mouth with the fan and asked back, Is that how it seems? Kisera looked at Adelaide with a sense of resignation, silently evaluating her. A bit arrogant, quite distant, and extremely charming. Meanwhile, Genevieve was astonished to see Kisera. These siblings really do share those traits. At that moment, Kisera looked at the man and spoke. He can't offer a sailing ship but says he will follow you to hell. What a fool, thinking you can seduce me that way on my birthday. Adelaide then stepped in to rescue the young man. Brother, if you keep that up, no one will talk to me. Then I suppose I'll just have to take care of you myself, Kisera replied. After saying that, he extended his hand inviting Adelaide to a dance, and she quickly agreed. The two of them took each other's hands and started a waltz. Watching this, Genevieve thought to herself, those two are just standing together, but I can't help being mesmerized by them. Being too focused on them, Genevieve noticed that Kisera seemed a bit angry, but she couldn't figure out why. Adelaide and Kisera quickly became the center of attention at the party as they began their dance. Adelaide spoke up, Brother, are you feeling unwell? Should I call a physician? Kisera responded, Cut it out, that irritating tone. There's no need to keep pretending. Adelaide smiled at his response. Pretending? That hurts my feelings. With the same cold tone, Kisera said, That's exactly what I intended. But if it's a wound from you, I'll gladly take it. What do you think I'll do? At this moment, Kisera shifted his step and continued, If you wait and I slip into your bed, are you sure you won't cry like you did last time? Adelaide was stunned upon hearing those words. Her expression quickly changed as she turned the awkwardness into a smile. Cry? I would welcome my brother with joy. While speaking, she moved closer to Kisera to gain the upper hand. This action of hers provoked Kisera, and he gritted his teeth in anger. I told her to act like my little sister, but this is overdoing it. The dance ended amidst cheers from the crowd. At that moment, Adelaide asked, Has Lord Ezra Lot arrived yet? I thought you were going to introduce us. Kisera asked why she was asking about that person. Adelaide replied, You haven't forgotten the arrangement with Delavale, have you? At that very moment, an announcement was made. Lord Ezra Delavale has arrived. A man stepped into the hall under the moonlight. This man interrupted Adelaide and Kisera's dance. Excuse me, could you be Lady Adelaide Bonaparte? At this point, Kisera's large body blocked her view, and Adelaide could only see that Ezra had blonde hair. She noticed the frown on Kisera's face. So, what's meant to happen will happen. Will Kisera hold back to let the plan unfold smoothly, or will he pull Adelaide closer to himself? Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to follow the Manhwa series High Society.